Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining, and welcome back to another session on my Declassified Caribbean News and Commentary channel. Now, this afternoon, we are going to be looking at Jason Arday and Cambridge. Was a Black academic targeted? That's what we'll be looking at this afternoon. Now, we're living in some very interesting times where many mysterious things are happening around the world, things that continue to mystify our thinking, and we're really wondering what in the dickens is happening. Now, there are moments when a person's life story is so extraordinary that it demands closer examination, not simply admiration, but careful questions. Jason Arday's educational journey has been presented as one of the most remarkable achievements among Black people. According to his biographical information published by Cambridge, he reportedly did not begin speaking until around the age of 11 and did not become literate until approximately age 18. Yet only a few years later, he had obtained a bachelor's degree, and by 2015, at about 30 years of age, he had earned a PhD degree. As an educator myself, I find this chronology deeply compelling, not because such achievement should be dismissed, but precisely because it raises important educational questions. What educational pathway enabled someone who reportedly became literate at 18 to progress to university and complete a bachelor's degree within roughly 4 years? What happened during those critical years? What does the source actually mean when it describes him as becoming literate at 18 years old? These are not questions intended to diminish Jason Arday's academic accomplishments. Jason Arday's accomplishment is extraordinary. On the contrary, extraordinary claims deserve careful examination, particularly when they concern education, academic credentials, and a person whose life story has been presented as an inspiration to others. Today, we are going to look carefully at Jason Arday's educational biography, examine the chronology that has been published about his life, and ask a simple but important question. How does someone go from reportedly becoming literate at age 18 to earning a university degree at 22 and ultimately a PhD? Let us examine the record, separate what is documented from what remains unclear, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. And may I suggest here that we are Black people, so we also have to examine, we have to do an introspective look at ourselves to see if there's any error in our ways before we can say, wow, race, 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 race. Yes, race is involved, but we must also attach personal responsibilities to everything that we do. Accountability is important. Now, I'm on the Cambridge website here, and I want you to understand that this is coming from the website on Jason Arday. This is a biographical information, so you can get it there if you so desire. Arday is a highly respected scholar of race. This is what Cambridge is saying: inequality and education, with a particular interest in improving the representation of Black, Asian, and minority ethnic people in higher education. He will take up the post of Professor of Sociology of Education in the Faculty of Education, University of Cambridge, on March 6. Unfortunately, he has passed away. At 37, he will be the youngest Black person ever appointed to a professorship at Cambridge, a platform he intends to use to inspire more people from underrepresented backgrounds into higher education, building on university's many initiatives in this area. It is a commitment rooted in experience. Arday has faced many personal challenges, notably being diagnosed at the age of 3 with a form of autism spectrum disorder, which meant he was unable to speak until he was 11, or to read or write until he was 18. Other parts of his story, however, epitomize the significant barriers that neurodivergent individuals, those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, I'm not sure why they're using the word neurodivergent individuals, and Black, Asian, and minority ethnic group people face when trying to build careers in the sector. Arday was born and raised in Clapham, South London. Therapists and career advisors who predicted he would spend his adult life in assisted living and require lifelong support. Instead, through personal determination and the support of family and close friends, he went to college, trained as a teacher, and then launched his academic career. Now, listen to the chronology, right? The chronology that we are getting from the University of Cambridge. At age 27, while studying for his PhD, listen to what they're saying, he wrote a set of personal goals on a bedroom wall at his parents' home. One of these read, "One day I will work at Oxford or Cambridge." So that is what he predicted when he was living with his parents. "My work focuses primarily on how we can open doors to more people from disadvantaged backgrounds and truly democratize higher education." Now, Arday is at the wrong, or was at the wrong place, because Harvard and the Cambridge and the Oxford of the world are not democratic institutions, right? They are autocratic in many ways. So Arday would not have brought about any sort of changes at Harvard or at the Cambridge or at these elite universities. Hopefully, being in a place like Cambridge will provide me with the leverage to lead that agenda nationally and globally. Why is that, Black people like to think that we can go to elite institutions and we are going to be agents of change? Now, don't get me wrong, you can be an inspiration for the token few who will get there. But the fact of the matter, in terms of the majority of people of color, you are not going to make any significant inroads in improving the livelihood and the situation that exists in the Black community. So we can't build from the top down, right? It's from the bottom up that we talk about when we talk about revolutionary or activism. It's always from the bottom up and not from the top down. Talking about it is one thing, doing it is what matters. Cambridge is already making significant changes and has achieved some notable gains in attempting to diversify the landscape. Now, is that true? What he's saying here, do you think that is true? I don't think so. Less than 2% of university professors are Black. Less than 2%. Some people say 1% of university lecturers and professors in Great Britain are Black. Okay, so the fact of the matter is that Cambridge is not doing, he's just another token Black person that they opted to have been there. But there's so much more to be done here and across the sector. They always say that, right? The same words that we get recycled all the time. As a child, Arday's mother played a critical role developing his self-confidence and skills, in particular by introducing him to a wide range of music. Her hope was that this would aid his conceptualization of language, but it also kickstarted a lifelong interest in popular culture that has characterized some of his research, which is great. He finally began to read and write in his late teens, supported by his mentor, college tutor, and close friend. So he was, privately tutored, Sandra Sandry. He then studied physical education and education studies at the University of Surrey before training as a PE teacher. During this time, he became aware of the possibility of postgraduate study, and at age 22 told Sandry that he was considering a PhD. Now, that's something interesting. If he actually, started learning to read and write at 18, now how is it that he's landing up in a PhD, but a bachelor's program, 4 years after? Where is the chronology? That is where something is missing there. I am not sure if you think, but something is not right here, and the university is not helping to clarify. He remembers that conversation as a turning point. Sandra said, "I think you can do this. I think we can take on the world and win." Looking back, that was when I first really believed in myself. A lot of academics say that they stumbled into this line of work, but from that moment, I was determined and focused. I knew this would be my goal. So it's great. And we like the fact that he was a very ambitious young man. Arday went on to acquire 2 master's qualifications and a PhD in educational studies. Now remember that he first learned to read and write at age 18. And now in his 20s, he's earning 2 master's degrees, right? The bachelor's and 2 master's degree, and he would finally ultimately gain or obtain his PhD at age 30. A rather miraculous and extraordinary feat. He traces his academic interest in race, education, and society back to his childhood. Some of his early memories involve being inspired watching Nelson Mandela's release on television and South Africa's symbolic triumph in the 1995 Rugby World Cup. Growing up in a disadvantaged area and then working as a teacher also gave him firsthand insights into the systemic inequalities that Black, Asian, and minority ethnic students often face in education. So he's very, very knowledgeable of minorities, and he wants to improve their standing in mainstream education. In 2015, while still a doctoral student, he co-edited with Professor Claire Alexander, University of Manchester, the Runnymede Trust Landmark Report, Aiming Higher, which spotlighted racial and ethnic inequality in British universities and its relationship with wider social issues. So he did that when he was obtaining his PhD. Listen to what is happening, because we've got to look at these things before we begin to cry race, 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 and we begin now to blame who should not be blamed, because we also have to admit when we also lie, and sometimes we do lie. Let me say something. I was a part of academia, and I know that a lot of what is done there, people often do plagiarize, and they do embellish what they do there. All right, so this is nothing new. It's only because, as you're saying, he's Black, and maybe he did something. Maybe he did something that they didn't want him to do, or he said something, or there was some business deal that he was not really wanting to do, and they sought to punish him. But we have to be careful, when we enter these places, these white spaces, we must understand that they will hoist us up and then they will throw us down. The best thing to do when you fall with your integrity. And that is what we're here to learn. If you fall from those areas, those spaces, those white spaces, whether you're in North America or you're in Germany, wherever you are, when you fall, make sure that whenever you fall with your integrity intact. Learning to become an academic, however, was very difficult, particularly because he had very practical or little practical training or guidance about how to do it. By day, Arday worked as a PE lecturer, while dedicating endless evenings and hundreds of hours to drafting academic papers, studying sociology, watching videos of lectures, and attempting to master his discipline and recite content verbatim. Wow, how does he do that? That seems to be undoable, but he did it. When I started writing academic papers, I had no idea what I was doing. So didn't you say that you actually co-wrote a paper while you were doing your PhD with this Claire Alexander of the University of Manchester? So how is he now saying that when I was writing academic papers, I had no idea what I was doing? He said, I did not have a mentor and no one ever showed me how to write. But he said that he co-wrote a brilliant piece of work with a professor of the University of Manchester. So I'm not sure. I was lost here. And this is on the University of Cambridge website. Everything I submitted got violently rejected. The peer review process was so cruel, it was almost funny, but I treated it as a learning experience and perversely began to enjoy it. In fact, it is cruel. And there's a lot of truth to what he's saying here. What is not coherent is the fact that he said that he did not know how to write academic papers, yet he said while he was doing his PhD that he co-authored a very important work. He said he co-edited with Professor Claire Alexander of the University of Manchester, the Runnymede Trust Landmark Report, Aiming Higher. Well, that might not have been academic. Well, I hope it was not. He eventually published his first paper in 2018. Now, 2018. So he got his PhD in 2015 or 16 thereabout and published his first paper in 2018. That is doable. The same year, he successfully secured a senior lectureship at Roehampton University before moving on to Durham University, where he was an associate professor of sociology. Some people are questioning that. In 2021, Arday became a professor of sociology of education at the University of Glasgow's School of Education, making him, at the time, one of the youngest professors in the UK. He established himself as a leading scholar in his field, publishing extensively on subjects including the experiences of Black students in universities, the underrepresentation of ethnic minority people in academic careers, and the long-term impacts of racial discrimination in education. Throughout his career, he has committed himself to helping as many ethnic minority and underrepresented people as possible gain access to opportunities within the sector. Nothing is wrong with that. That's a noble aspiration and a noble deed that he performed. He has also sole authored and co-written several books, including works that explore the roots of structural racism in higher education and the Cool Britannia phenomenon of the 1990s from an ethnic minority perspective. Arday is a trustee of the Runnymede Trust, the UK's leading race equality think tank. So he's a part of a think tank which talks about racial inequalities and stuff like that. And the British Sociological Association, a senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy and a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts. He has been called on by numerous organizations, including the government of the UK and the Scottish and Welsh parliaments, to help develop anti-racism strategies. So we must say that he is in fact a brilliant young man. Yeah. However, there are some holes in what he says that he has accomplished. And the first thing we're suggesting is that he suggests that he learned how to speak at age 11. Then he actually learned how to read and write at age 18. So we have to now begin to look at things critically, right? And I know that many of us lack that sort of skill. And here we have to reason from cause to effect. We're not here to have any sort of, oh, race, as we're hearing. We want to analyze what really is happening and why. And is there some lack of accountability? Based on my reading, I suspect that they were going to give him the Simon & Schuster publisher. They had promised him $1.5 million for the publishing of his memoir, which would have been published sometimes, very shortly. I think that it's going to be published in the United States sometimes, probably next week or this week. Now, is it that they did not want to pay him or something about the agreement and he didn't agree, that they decided that they would actually now embarrass him? That is what they do, people, that they sometimes enter into agreement. You might not necessarily like what they're doing, and then when you either speak up or you disagree with what they're doing, then they will make you fall. That is how the system is designed. It's not a system in which you think it's fair, because the world is never going to be fair, right? And that is why you have to stand up for that which is right and your integrity. I know also a lot of you understand that, in order to get this job, you have to embellish what is on your resume, because that is the only way you are going to appear as if you have the qualification that you have. But notice that they will accept you and they might give you the promotion, but if you do something, if you slide and you slip, then they will come after you. That is how white people behave. And up to today, the Black people, even as high as they are, still do not know the psychology of white people. All right? So they will give you, and they will give you your flowers, and they will make you feel very popular and famous until they destroy you. And that's exactly what it seems has happened to this young man, Arday. But let us look at some of what some other people are saying about what really is happening there with, what's his name? Jason Arday. So let's get to some of the thing here. Some people are asking, the media went after Arday more after he resigned. And that is true, that even after he resigned, they didn't stop. Why?
Stop me when you hear a lie. White people have been caught lying too. Rachel Reeves lied all over her CV. Jonathan Reynolds claimed to be a solicitor. Now, how could you make such a claim? The media did not drive those people, thankfully, to do the unthinkable. But after Professor Jason Arday stepped down because he said, I've reached the limits to anyone can reasonably be expected to reach, the media kept going after him. Left-wing media, right-wing media. In fact, they went after him more after he resigned. They wanted more. What more do you get from someone after they resigned? Did you want him to do something to himself? When Rachel Reeves was found to have lied about her experience, did they attack the fact that she was white? No. The headline did not read, white appointee caught lying. But for Professor Jason Arday, his skin color is all that mattered.
The fact of the matter is that some people are suggesting that Jason Arday perhaps made some blunders, and he did acknowledge that he made some blunders. And, we are all young, and most of us, if we're true to ourselves, might have plagiarized. As I'm telling you, professors at universities, they plagiarize from their students oftentimes. When their students write essays and stuff like that, I have had my professors who have literally used my work without citing that I was the author of the sentences, paragraphs that they wrote, which they should not do, right? But that is what the world is, and sometimes they get away, sometimes they don't get away. The problem is when the media is going after you, or if you did something and you slip, then you will slide, and then they'll go back to your history, and they will go and they will, try to dig up as much funk as they can dig up so that they can destroy you, right? And that is what is happening. That is what seemed to have happened to Jason Arday. And that's what I'm suggesting to you on this platform. Anything that you do, make sure that it is transparent and that you can stand up to public scrutiny. Because if not, the media and even your bosses and some of your friends are going to, and colleagues will go against you. And that is what you must understand. Now, there is a gentleman here from Howard University who wrote a very interesting piece about who killed Jason Arday. I think that's a very beautiful piece that he penned. He said, earlier this afternoon, my oldest boyhood friend, a distinguished international lawyer who received his doctorate at Cambridge, called me to share the tragic news that Jason Arday, the Black British academic, had been found dead. I have been following the story ever since it broke out in July. We commiserated about his tragic death and concluded that Arday was killed by many people and institutions. Listen to what he's saying, because some of you don't want to listen. You want to go and get some gossips here and there. I'm not here to carry the gossips. I want you to be able to put things into proper perspective. Okay? Jason Arday's death was the result of a convergence of forces that revealed the fragility of the racial settlement in post-imperial and post-colonial Britain and the contradictions of its elite institutions. He was eagerly elevated as a symbol, ruthlessly scrutinized as an anomaly, and callously discarded as a liability. Note what he's saying, callously discarded. So they use you for their own purposes, and then they spit you out. So the Mia Motleys, the Andrew Holnesses, and all of our prime ministers can also be used. That is what the system does. It uses you, and then it spits you out. His rise and fall exposed the moral bankruptcy of a system that wants the appearance of racial progress without the work of structural change. So what they want to do is to promote these so-called token Black people, and you become so much enthralled by them that you become so invested in them that you don't desire any structural change. In other words, you don't want the root of the system to be uprooted and for any meaningful change to happen, because you're so invested in Barack Obama, you're so invested in this Jason Arday. And I'm lamenting his death, but I'm not suggesting that you should devote all of your energy into one person, but you should look at the system. Arday was killed by white liberal proponents of performative inclusion who propelled him, shrouding him with the aura of heroic exceptionalism. And it was a hero. And some of the things that they said he did not do. It was impossible for him to have done. Cambridge presented him as its youngest Black professor and celebrated his life story as proof of institutional transformation. His appointment was marketed through a narrative of adversity and triumph that emphasized his autism, late speech, poverty, and extraordinary athletic feats. This pattern reflects what Musa Al-Gharabi identifies in his provocative book, We Have Never Been Woke: The Cultural Contradictions of a New Elite, as the behavior of white, liberal, symbolic capitalists, a highly educated professional class that converts the visibility of marginalized individuals into moral and cultural currency. In Al-Gharabi's analysis, elite wokeness functions, let me get this off the screen, functions as a prestige economy in which institutions and their leaders signal virtue through symbolic gestures that flatter their self-image while leaving material inequalities untouched. And as Black people, we lack self-esteem. As Black people, we lack self-esteem. So it feels to us when we're working for these white privileged institutions, we feel whenever they put us up there, whenever they elevate us, we think that we have achieved, we have arrived, and that somehow we're going to use our position to make a difference. And white people are saying, no, you aren't going to do that. No, you aren't going to do that. And if you ever attempt to do that, we are going to embarrass you. We are going to humiliate you. And possibly this could have been what has happened to Jason Arday. Cambridge embraced Arday as a form of symbolic capital, a figure whose improbable ascent could be displayed as evidence of moral renewal without requiring structural reform. Tyler Austin Harper's critique of elite academic hypocrisy in a recent issue of The Atlantic further illuminates this dynamic. Harper argues that the universities deploy progressive rhetoric as a cheap moral shield to obscure exploitative labor practices, administrative bloat, and declining faculty security. In his account, institutions perform inclusion through branding and narrative while practicing exclusion through precarity, union busting, and corporate governance. Cambridge's elevation of Arday fits this model of inclusive exclusion. Inclusive exclusion, where symbolic diversity is celebrated even as the underlying structures remain unchanged. But, Black people support that because they love the fact that they have somebody who looks like them, even though he is just what? A minuscule representation at Cambridge, at Harvard, at Oxford, and these elite institutions. You worship them, the very ground that they walk on, not understanding that they are being used to deceive you and also to exploit you. This environment encouraged a celebratory days that focus on Arday's biography rather than his scholarship, allowing myth-making to substitute for rigorous evaluation and creating conditions in which his elevation served institutional needs more than his own. And this is coming from a Howard University professor. The university killed Arday. Listen to what he's saying. The university killed Arday. Cambridge used his biography as a public relations asset. The institution did not conduct basic due diligence on his academic record, because you cannot read a basic biography of Arday and not question that something here is missing. Something is missing. Okay, something is missing from the picture, and they're not telling us what is missing. His claims or his CV. Senior academics later admitted they had never heard of his work. I've never heard of him, but it doesn't mean that because I've never heard of him, it means that he doesn't exist, because he's all the way in Great Britain. But I've never heard of a work or something that he has done. Let us say when Walter Rodney, a young age, 24 years old, he actually published his thesis, right? His book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, which is still a classic. Now, these people are people that you can celebrate. And I'm not saying you should worship them, but the fact of the matter, I never heard of anything that he has produced that is world class. Never. All right? He's not an Eric Williams. Okay? Cambridge's vice chancellor now acknowledges that the appointment process was flawed and that the Faculty of Education bears responsibility for the errors in a classic maneuver of institutional leadership deflection and passing the buck. Nearly 100 senior academics demanded an independent investigation, noting that the appointment had been made not by the faculty, but by a separate board of electors chaired by university leadership. By the way, during the pandemic, we heard that this was going to happen, that the faculty was eventually losing their power, and they were going to now employ people, to just have administrators run an academic institution. So our institutions are really business. They're corporations, right? They're not academic centers of learning. I want you to understand that. And for those of you who have children, don't believe that Cambridge and Harvard is going to educate your children. The institutional response intensified the damage. Cambridge initially defended him as the victim of a smear campaign. When pressure mounted, the university reversed course and announced a new investigation. It deleted web pages and removed references to his work. I repeat that, and this is coming from a Howard University, an African-American or African professor at Howard University. It deleted web pages and removed references to his work. College ended its inquiry the moment his resignation terminated his fellowship. Cambridge's leadership now concedes that the case has damaged the institution. The university's action reveals a pattern of reputational self-protection that abandons individuals once they cease to serve institutional interests. For those of us who have worked in academia, in the academy, we know that this is how it works. We know that the academia is really a quasi-religious, institution. It's not what you think it is. It's not what you think it is. And if you look behind the scenes, you will see some very terrible things. Some things you will wonder, why do you even send your children to go and learn from these people? The media killed Arday, he's now saying here. All these institutions, as he's saying, killed Arday. The scrutiny that followed his appointment was immediate and intense. Allegations of plagiarism surfaced through Nathan Kofnos, a self-described racist realist who has argued that Black people would disappear from high-profile positions at top universities, including Harvard, under meritocracy, as if white people get their positions based on meritocracy. Please. The claims expanded into national coverage. The British press treated Arday as a symbol of alleged DEI excess and framed him as a diversity poster child or poster boy. The reporting was disproportionate compared to similar cases involving white academics whose transgressions rarely attract national attention, nor are universalized to other white academics, because they are truly culpable too. For example, in fact, you might have more white professors who plagiarize than blacks do. For example, when a Cambridge historian was found to have plagiarized student essays, the coverage was minimal. The frenzy echoed earlier racist press campaigns, including the notorious attacks on Benjamin Zephaniah, the renowned Black British writer, poet, actor, and musician, when Cambridge considered offering him a fellowship in 1987, a reminder that the British media has long weaponized Black visibility in elite institutions. Arday's case became a spectacle because it aligned with the ideological interests of those who oppose racial equity. Okay? So neither the left nor the right want racial equity. They will destroy you because that is their purpose, as progressive as they sound. The media pursued every inconsistency in his story. His claims about charity fundraising, endurance running, and racist intimidation were interrogated. Some were unverifiable, while others were contradicted by witnesses. The press treated each inconsistency as confirmation of a broader narrative of deceit. Arday's own words revealed the psychological strain he was under. When asked about the absence of evidence for the pig's head incident, he said he thought the reporter would simply believe him. His embellishments became accelerants once the storm began. They allowed critics to collapse every allegation into a single narrative of fabrication. So what happens here is that I think he was actually exonerated of the charges of plagiarism, but there were other allegations and other embellishments that he said, other accomplishments or so-called accomplishments that he said that he had achieved, which when they checked, he had not achieved. So it seems that that's when now it gave the media that sort of, vindictiveness to go after him. The heavy burden of racialized expectation and representation killed Arday. Arday served as an avatar of racial uplift among his fellow minoritized academics, fulfilling the desperate desire to enter and belong in the unreformed white elite citadels of academia, because that's where we want to be. That is our goal. That is our aspiration, to be working right at the white master beside him. We love him. We adore him as much as we say that we don't. They describe the burden of serving as racial proxies as unbearable. They know from bitter experience that when a white person makes mistakes, it is processed as an individual matter. He is right here on point. But when a black person makes a mistake or makes mistakes, it is treated as collective and used to undermine. Yeah, all black people are like that. All right, but not all white people are like that. That is how they reason. And speak to them on an individual basis, and you will see how they think. Not surprisingly, the consequences of the Arday saga for Black academics have been severe. Many describe a toxic atmosphere and the fear of becoming the next target. So Black people are concerned. They understand that they are trying to undermine Black people at that level so that they can say that we don't possess the academic qualifications and aptitude to perform at that level. That's exactly what they're doing, because these people are crafty and they're cunning. They report that the scandal has emboldened those who oppose racial equity. They say the case has revived the accusation that Black scholars are unqualified diversity hires. Now, when you look at this situation, we have to ask ourselves the question, when they do these things to us, when they actually enable us and then they, we do not stand up to scrutiny, when, they put the very lowest of us in terms of our qualification in positions of power, then what happens? Then people are going to say, yes, that is how all Black people behave. You're not going to see the most brilliant Black person in these positions of power. Why? Because they don't want to show Black excellence. That's not their agenda. Their agenda is to show you mediocre Black excellence and then promote it as the Black excellence. And when stands up to scrutiny and people say, no, that is mediocrity, then now we cry foul and we say what? It is racism, right? But where is the responsibility? Now, why did why did he have to lie? Why did he embellish? Was he forced to? And don't say that it's only him, because you do it too, right? You do it too. On your resumes, you do it. You embellish your resumes because you want to feel as if you've done all and accomplished all of these things when you did not. Right? And that is how the world, especially in the United States, a very phony world, right, in which people embellish themselves and pretend to be more than they really are. This is the world we live in. The problem is now, when you get into trouble and they want to go after you, then is when you are going to cry and you realize that embellishing it is not the way to go. Let's look at Z saying, I'm from the UK. There are different issues at hand. One being a black face at a high level, you are a target. Apparently, he was exonerated. He told stories about his background, which were false. Absolutely. And that is the whole thing, that I think he would have been okay after the investigation surrounding his academic, what you call it now, qualifications, his academic plagiarism, which they're saying that he did not plagiarize. But because now they're seeing other statements he made, which were false, then was when they decided to go really after him. Because really and truly, when you read the biography, when you read very well the biography, you realize that there are some holes in it, because there's no way that he would have become literate at age 18, got his bachelor's at 22, 2 masters at 27, a PhD at 30. It doesn't add up. Okay, and I am an educator. I understand how these things work. It doesn't work like that. Okay, unless he was some genius, and maybe afterwards he became a genius. That's the only way. But they should have explained to us. They should have filled those holes, and they did not, including the website at Cambridge University. They did not do that. And I know you were coming expecting for us to praise him and to honor him and all of that. And yes, I honor all Black excellence. But I'm not here to be a person who is going to be drunk by the wine of this foolish narrative of racism. Yes, racism is a part of it, but racism is not the only defining factor. 3, being autistic and under such scrutiny and vilification, mental stress imploded. Right, and maybe that's why he should not have been in that position in the first place. Right? He should not have been in that position in the first place, because a lot of what they said he wasn't. He wasn't. A lot of the successes that they said that he had achieved, he did not achieve those successes. So when now the public scrutiny is there, it's difficult for him to defend himself. And eventually he winds up, it seems, I don't know if he committed suicide, but he is now not with us. And may God, bless his soul. Very sad situation, but sadly, the British press are nasty. Yes, and we know that the British press, the American press, white people in general, they are nasty. And that's what we're saying. Whenever you have these positions, particularly at that level, make sure that whatever you do, even when they connive you to embellish your achievements, you tell them no. Because white people know how to lie. And they know how to lie in a very, educated, sophisticated manner. And you will think that that is normal, but when they go after you, they're going to come after you and they're going to destroy you. That is how they behave. So right now, it's an agenda, it seems, that they want to now get rid of excellent Black professors at these universities, particularly these top universities, okay? And to say, we don't want you anymore. So they're trying now to highlight remember they had the lady there from Harvard University for the Haitian American, what's her name? What her name was it? Is it Claudia or Claudia? Forgot her name, right? But she was also the victim of this sort of media scrutiny about her PhD, which she did years ago. But because she was then president of Harvard University, they went after her because many people were not comfortable with seeing a Black woman seated in the seat or the position of president of Harvard University. Racism, as you're saying, very good. I'm happy he's from the UK, and I'm happy you're bringing these points to us, Z. Racism isn't the only factor. Agreed. The UK press are targeting other Blacks at high levels. Absolutely. And whether they are the right or the left, the BBC or the Telegraph, they are from of the same stock. They are of the same stock. So we have to be aware, ladies and gentlemen. We can't just now go and run after racism. I know that's what many people are running after, and that will get views, but it will not educate you to understand that this is not just about race. It's about destroying people's lives. That's one. Okay? And it might not just be Black people. It could be any people of color in these universities. Okay? Or anyone who stands up for what is right. Anyone who stands up for who challenges academia, then you can actually be brought down. I know what academia is about, so you can't tell me what it is. It's a nasty place. It is nasty. Now, Z is saying this is why we have to give Obama credit. He aired his laundry so they couldn't come after him. Well, no, I don't think that they didn't, because they couldn't come after him, because he did what they wanted him to do. And I opened Z by asking the question, and probably you're there. So is it that, Professor Arday didn't do something that they wanted him to do, or he might have said something? I know that he was in negotiation, or might have already negotiated with the publishers, that is Simon and Schuster, who are going to publish his memoir very shortly. Were they having any sort of tension with that negotiation? I know that white people sometimes don't want to pay Black people for what they deserve. I don't know what was happening, but it could be that there was a conflict, internal conflict that we don't know about, or he did something, said something that he should not have said, or interacted or touched somebody's corn, walked on somebody's corn that he should not have walked on, and they decided that they were going to do this to him. Obama was more cautious. He knew that he had to do exactly what they told him to do. As a result of that, they protected him. The media protected him, the powers that be protected him, and continue to protect him. But even if he, people are talking about even Michelle Obama divorcing Obama, and she can't. She can't, because there is a contract, and if she does, she has to pay the consequences, right? And that's how it works. We know that's how it works. That these people are very clear when you enter into contracts with them, and if you go against the contract, you will feel it, and they will humiliate you, and they will use. And talk about the whole matter of people are saying, oh, I'm not going to do this when the government tells me. That is how they destroy you, right? This is how they destroy you. So when you say you're not going to do something, you can talk all you want to talk, but can you go through what this guy went through? When he's in his apartment alone, nobody, including some of his friends, will move away from you. And people are like that, When the going gets tough, people move away. If they called you once per week, they begin to call you once per month, if they ever call you. That is how people are. That is how they're conditioned. And that is what you have to understand. So when they put the pressure on you, you've got to do what they want you to do. I'm not sure why are there negotiations that's not being published. Right. They never publish what the real deal is. And that is what we have to understand. The media never publishes the crux of what is happening, what we need to know. They publish surface things that we can what? We can do. The crowd can be cursing about race, and we're going to be fighting and arguing over these things until 9-day wonder, it goes away, another story comes. And that is how they fill us, while the agenda is being pursued. But because our people are so distracted, not very intelligent, not very critically minded, then of course they win the battle. So you're saying that I'm not sure about Arday negotiations. That's not being published. I left the UK for a while now in the Caribbean as the racist agenda is becoming more overt. Now, the fact of the matter too, we're seeing all of these agenda, even in the Caribbean, Z. I'm not sure where you are, if you're in Jamaica or Barbados or wherever part of the Caribbean you are, but we are having similar things even right here. Maybe not the racism in terms of the, you are discriminated against in terms of your color, but in terms of class. Okay, in terms of class. The other day in Jamaica, we saw where the prime minister, well, he said he wasn't involved, but you had the police force who went and they just bulldozed people's houses down, no accountability, and that is the end of the story. So, right, so that is what you're in Barbados. So that is what we're seeing. So we're seeing some of these things in the Caribbean as well. They might not be in the same, representation, the same way in which it happens in the UK and in the United States, but it is happening right here too. It is happening here right now too. And that is why even during the pandemic, you never heard anybody coming out of the University of the West Indies who spoke out against what was happening. They were silent. They were silent because they understood that if they don't close their mouths, they could have wound it up, losing their jobs. Okay, that is how the system operates. And we've got to now look carefully at who these people are. Now, listen to Wikipedia. Wikipedia is saying Jason Arday was a British academic and author who was a professor of sociology at the University of Cambridge from 2023 to 2026. Arday resigned following widely publicized allegations that he had plagiarized and falsified parts of his research, as well as claims of fabrication within the autobiographical accounts. He was found dead 9 days after his resignation. Wow. So, so even after he had resigned, they did not, decide not to pursue him anymore, right? They continued. In fact, they increased the temperature of the investigation, even after they had declared that he was not in any way guilty of any form of plagiarism. After receiving a PhD from Liverpool John Moores University in 2015, Arday taught physical education at Leeds, Beckett, and Roehampton before teaching sociology at Durham and Glasgow, where he became a professor in 2022. So professor so quickly, and that's what I'm suggesting too, that normally in the British, at the British universities, I know that the politics is there as in the American system, but it's a little bit more political in terms of getting a professorship in the British system of education. And mind you, he got his PhD, according to what is being reported, in 2015, and he became a professor. He became a professor in 2022. Wow, that's incredible. From 2018, he contributed publications that focused on race and racism in the British education sector and wrote autoethnographic reflections about his life as a neurodivergent Black academic. Now, something is just not adding up. Something is just not adding up, and I'm wondering if you are seeing it as I am seeing it. But I can't speak lies, right? I have to tell you the truth, even though it hurts. And I'm not trying to attack Professor Jason. He's already deceased now, so why would I even try to attack him, because he's no longer with us, unfortunately. But the fact of the matter, what can we learn? What can we learn from what has happened to this very intelligent, or what was a very intelligent young man? But it seems to me that the white institutions of power used him, and after using him, they spat him out. Now, there's another here where we have Jason Arday and the identity we are all chasing. Listen to this. I never imagined I would end up writing about a former Cambridge professor who has dominated the news for the last few weeks. But the story of Jason Arday has undoubtedly gripped the nation. In part, this is because it has so many of the ingredients that make up a good tale. A good what? Tale. There's exaggeration, mystery, barefaced lies, pressure, a victim, perpetrators, and most crucially of all, it is a culture war issue and a lightning rod for critics of diversity, equality, and inclusion. Just 3 years ago, Jason Arday was a bright light in the academic world. Just 3 years ago. At age 37, or at just 37 years old, he was appointed as the youngest ever professor at Cambridge University, one of our most prestigious universities. As a Black man, he was hailed as evidence that the university was finally starting to reflect modern Britain in its faculty by just having a token Black person, right? That is going to finally represent what Britain wants as a part of its faculty. Now, that is foolhardy. It is, I think, worth dropping in a warning here. Success quickly in life can easily breed arrogance. I repeat that. Success quickly or quickly gained in life can easily breed arrogance. Our sinful hearts need no encouragement. And he's saying here the Apostle Paul brings real wisdom to the fore when he commands that the elders in churches must not be recent converts, or else they will become conceited. Was Arday failed by a system who promoted him too quickly? We have to ask these questions. And were they using him in their doing, in their bid to discredit Black people? And Arday certainly seemed successful. He was not just an academic at the top of his game, but also apparently a brilliant runner, philanthropist, and author. But everything began to unravel in late 2025. He faced allegations that he had plagiarized parts of his PhD thesis and other academic research. He strenuously rejected these claims. According to the Telegraph, an analysis found more than 100 pages or passages rather in his PhD were similar to another thesis by Paula Wadiak Myers, who had published 6 years previously. So we're seeing here things that we have to look at in terms of what they were doing. What was the agenda of Cambridge University in actually hoisting this young man up and then spitting him out of their mouth? Now, we can say that they did try to investigate, but the fact of the matter, the damage had already been done, right? The damage, no matter what investigation that Cambridge launched afterwards, the damage had already been done, okay? Now, this is something that we need to understand. Now, there's something that the NPR is calling here is also, all of them are carrying basically the same thing. They're telling us that, Jason Arday was 37 when he became Cambridge's youngest Black professor in 2023, resigned after he came under immense media pressure with weeks of allegations about plagiarism in his academic work and questions surrounding claims about his athletic and fundraising accomplishments. Now, we're seeing many stories in terms of his accomplishments, which we need to question in terms of the fact that there is no coherency in terms of how he could have achieved such a grandiose feat in a relatively short period of time, having gotten literacy or having achieved literacy at age 18 years old. I find that to be, crazy indeed. We have here the Claire phone up with the Cantor app. Okay, Cantor app. Okay. So what do you guys think? Do you think that Jason is innocent or was innocent? What do you think? I am the one here, blabbering my mouth. What do you think? Or you're just running after things to say that it's a race, that you jump at the race until you are beaten and you understand that it's not just about race. It has much more to do with than just race. This is a power structure too, and anybody who criticizes the power structure, the powers that be, if you stand up to them, they will humiliate you. Whether you're white or you're Black, they will do it. All right? They will do it. Okay, and that's what you must understand. In the case here, we're dealing with a Black person, but if you as a white person too go up against the system, they are going to equally humiliate you. Many don't, and that is why we're not seeing that they are being humiliated. But certainly, anybody who says that they've achieved this thing, there's something miraculous about it, something that is even, it borders on sorcery, right? And many people talk about what happens in London, and it's a city of witchcraft and sorcery. But what is happening here does not add up. Does not add up, and we've got to do our own research and stop thinking that we can just call and cry racism. And it's equal the same thing for Z and all of you who are there on the platform. We like to also say that, oh, everything is the government. Everything is the government. Oh, everything is poverty. And I'm not suggesting that our governments are not corrupt. I'm not suggesting that some of us might not be poor, but we can't blame everything on one thing. We've got to look at all sides of the coin. So not because you're poor, it means therefore you can't get up and study and go to class. Okay, so we have to put things into proper perspective, and that's what I'm here to do. We can't just say because it's Miss Mia Motley, the entire Barbados is going down. It's not true. There are other factors at play, and that is what you go on lives to hear. But I'm not going to do that because that will be lying, and it's going to hurt you in the final analysis. And you're going to be very terribly hurt when you realize that the system is much more than one individual person. Z saying this is where he came undone. How you running marathon in short times, etc. He also said he was sent a pig's head, but never reported this. Correct. And people are questioning it. And not because they question these things, it means that they're racist. They could be. Well, these things can coexist, right? They can question you and be racist at the same time. But what we have to do, we have to say, is this a legitimate question? Call out their racism, and I'm calling out their racism. It's racism in some regards, and I'm calling that out too. But I can also, as somebody who is a critically minded person, I can look at all sides and say, here, I think that Jason lied. He embellished his resume. He embellished his achievements, and they used it against him. It's almost like I'm an accountant, right? I'm a very good accountant working for a top firm, but I have a problem with stealing. Okay, not because I was this outstanding accountant and they decide now to get rid of me that it was just racism. No, I had a fault. I just could not keep my hands off the people's money. So you can say that, yes, it was racism, but at the same time, I have to be held accountable as well that I am a thief. That's what I'm saying to you. I'm not a thief, but I'm just telling you that this is how we have to look at the situation. And I know people here in the Caribbean, we don't like to look at things in a very intellectual, from a very intellectual perspective. All of the Black academics who supported him were good to do so, as they didn't question if there was any merit to the queries. However, the smokescreen was a racist academic, Coffney. But I'm happy you mentioned this, Z. Because the whole point is, if I am your brother, all right, Z, or I'm your sister or whatever, it is for your brother or sister to be truthful to you and say, don't go down that road. Because if you go down that road, you are going to be hurt. Somebody's going to kill you, right? So the Black academics who actually were silent at Cambridge or wherever they are and did not speak to him. Maybe some of them did and he didn't want to listen. But those who did not speak to him, they are equally racist and equally dangerous as any of the white people. Because if you see your brother going down a ditch and you know that that path is dangerous, you ought to tell him. And if I were there, I would say, look here, it doesn't add up. Some of your things here don't add up. Could you tell me how you got to this level at this age? And you said you did that. Was it really true? Because people are questioning it. Right? And that's why I can't function in academia, because I'm going to speak the truth. And in academia, the truth cannot be spoken. It's a church. It's a cult. And you have to keep things quiet. That is how you actually survive in academia. Right? So when people think that you have freedom of expression in academia and you're sending your children there to be educated, it is not so. Right? It is not what meets the eyes, guys. And that is what you have to understand. So the Black people there at Cambridge or at Oxford, wherever they are, who might have known him, if they did not tell him the truth, they are as equally dangerous and guilty as his white counterparts. And that is what we need to understand. This is something fundamental if we have not learned anything in this afternoon's program. We as Black people, we talk too much about, Black people, and yet we don't defend our brothers. We are not our brothers' keepers. We're not. We invigorate them to do what is wrong, and we jump on the same bandwagon. Oh, it's racist, it's racist, it's racist, when we are doing the same thing. Okay? And I don't care if you want to be my friend or not. Once I tell you that this is so, then if you want to call me, that's fine. You know, and that is what we have to do. But we want to be friends, and we want, oh, he's a professor at Cambridge University, he's my colleague, and he's well known, so that is how you want to be. All right, but that person does not give me self-esteem. Right? What is Harvard University? Or it's a place, right? It's a place. Okay, so we have to now get our thoughts together about this young man. We lament on this program. We lament his untimely death, because it was an untimely death. Now, listen to what the Guardian is saying about his publisher, Simon and Schuster. Is it Schuster? Am I pronouncing it correctly? Jason Arday, the former Cambridge professor accused of plagiarism. This is what the Guardian newspaper UK is saying, of plagiarism and embellishment, claimed he was paid $1.4 million for his forthcoming memoir detailing his extraordinary backstory. So he was paid all that money. And I'm wondering too, Z, I'm really wondering the fact that they are about to publish his work, right? Z, I hope you're with me, because you're doing some good thinking. They're about to publish his work. Is it that, Z, that some of the things are falsehood? The publishers would be having a problem publishing all of those errors. The best thing, if he were alive, he would have to correct them, wouldn't he? But the fact that he's no longer with us, therefore there's nobody who can say that it's not true or it's true, right? So they had to get rid of him. Is it that could also be the same as the problem too? They realize a lot of things are embellishment, okay? And some are lies and deceits. And if he were around, then he would have to be confronted, and some of the things would have to be retracted. But guess what? The book will be sold. Why? Because Black people who are stupid are going to read it and, wow, worship Jason Arday, because he's this wonderful God who taught at, University of Cambridge, right? That's how we think. And the white people make money from us, and we buy the book and we feel good, right? That a Black person, the youngest, in the history of Cambridge, to have been a professor. And that's good from a superficial perspective. But is that the full story? That's what we have to ask. That's what we're here to ask on this platform. And that is what I do, deep critical analysis. Arday was dodged by a growing series of questions over his academic work and credentials before he resigned on Wednesday night, saying the relentless accusations, speculation, and public commentary have taken a profound toll on me and on those I love. His resignation came after Cambridge announced it would launch an investigation following new information about his qualifications and career. Now, look at this. Look at what they're saying here. Despite allegations against Arday, Simon and Schuster said earlier this week it was planning to go ahead with the publication of his memoir on August 11th in the US and on the 27th of August in the UK. Simon and Schuster US told The Guardian on Thursday night it was proceeding with the publication of Great and Unfortunate Things by Jason Arday as planned. They don't care, right? They don't care. It's business. And all they're there to do is just get money. Right. Yeah. Let me see what you're saying, Z, because this is the sort of thinking we need, as Z is, in the company. We need more people now to be talking, because this is a very important story. Yes, the publishers would have an issue getting money for the book, just like the liar Cheyenne Bryant book, full of lies and struggling to sell the book on Amazon. Yes. And I think that if he were alive, they would have to perhaps recant some of the statements, and I don't know how that would have affected the publishing of the book. And they're about publishing the book and publishing it on time, because that's how they make their money. And they don't care if he has died or not. That is how the system operates. After having used you, and they'll spit you out. That is how the system works. So no matter how you feel important now, if you don't believe in yourself, and that's why Marcus Garvey said, if they have a white Harvard, we should have a Black Harvard. If they have a white Cambridge, Black people should have an equivalent of a Black Cambridge. Because when we go there and we're thinking that we are their equivalent, What they do, they use us. We are, we are academically, we are. But the fact of the matter is that they don't think you are, and that they will use you and they will spit you out at their own convenience. And it's sad that many of you are not here to listen to what I'm saying to you, because this is a crucial point I'm making. But you're running looking for gossips. Go ahead. Now, I heard he was on a no-fly list, which meant he couldn't go to promote the book in the US. The book isn't released in the UK as yet. Yeah, because it's going to be released, they said, on 11th, which would have passed on, say, probably it's released already in the United States, but in the UK, it will be released on the 27th of August per the what do you call it? The Guardian newspaper. No? So that's what they're saying. Now, listen to what they continue to say about what Simon and Schuster is saying. While it's a high figure, publishing sources said it would be plausible if Simon and Schuster US and UK teamed up to buy the book and sought worldwide rights, meaning they could sell the book into other regions as well as the UK and the US. After the deal was signed, it was rumored to be a 7-figure sum. One senior publisher said it was an utterly mad number, but the madness sometimes happens, so it was conceivable. They said a book such as Arday's would normally be expected to sell about 5,000 copies. So with $2 or 2 British sterling of royalty per copy, that equates to an advance of 10,000 pounds sterling, not $1.4 million or pounds. So they had offered him 1.4. But now they're telling us, according to what they've revised, their revised edition, they're saying that they could only offer him 10,000. Am I understood? I mean, is that what you're getting, Z? That's what I'm getting. That the money that they promised him, it doesn't seem like that was what they were going to pay him per the initial contract. It seems like that there was some misunderstanding, or there was some altercation after, not altercation, but some, altering of the contract after the agreement. Is that what you understand, Z, if you're still here? It seems to me that they were not going to be able to afford paying him, even though that was the initial contract, the 1.4 million, is it pounds or dollars, that they had actually promised him. That is what I'm getting from the Guardian newspaper. Yeah, so that is something that we have to look at. Ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at the whole concept of race and class. Jason Arday and Cambridge was a Black academic targeted, and we're saying that yes, to an extent, but we have to say that he also messed up, right? Because he actually embellished his achievements, which is not what you do. Even though you want to get to a certain level, you must speak the truth, because they will come after you. Many people do, but at the same time, when you are that famous and you are in the public's eye, in the public sphere, they can get you, because that's when they like to humiliate you. When you are well known and they want to kick you off your high horse, that is when they begin to humiliate you. So for those of us who are planning to work with these people, make sure that you do not embellish your resumes and embellish. And books like to do that. So even Obama's book, because when you read Obama's autobiography, right, and you read a lot of these autobiographies, they're all the same, I read, Obama's. I read the one that wanted to be president. What's her name? Kamala Harris. When you read these autobiographies, all you're reading the same thing. They're not the same words, right? They're not the same words, but the same ideas. This is the same thing. Like he said, when he was younger, he was at his parents' house, and he looked at the wall and he saw that he was going to become a professor at Cambridge or Oxford. Is that true? Maybe, but I don't think it's true. But but you take it for granted. Z saying uncertain about that part concerning the contract. Yes. Yeah, we're not. So I'm just asking, but we're not sure. Yeah, it's all speculation. Yes, Marie. I think that we have to be able to stand up, and for anything, whether in the Black world or the white world, whatever, let your word be your bond. Because when people come after you, they'll come after you. Even if you're in your Caribbean countries, if Miss Mia Motley if you're talking against her, make sure that you are not doing anything bad. Because when Miss Mia Motley comes after you, she's going to get you, right? Because she has access to information about you. And that's what we have to understand, that that's how it works. So when we are critiquing people and people of those, position and powerful positions, we've got to be careful that we are not in any way guilty, because they will come after us. All right, it might not be today, but it's going to happen sometimes in the future. So make sure that whatever we say can stand up to scrutiny. And I'm crying and I'm praying that, because I can feel the mother's pain. I can feel, Z, before you go to, I want you to tell me, as I'm talking about the mother's pain, I understand, I'm not sure, Z, and you are from the UK, at least you lived there, that Africans sometimes, and I'm not saying all Africans now, there are some Africans, let me just put it that way. There are some Africans who sometimes they embellish their resumes, and sometimes the practice in the UK, and it seems like they are so well accomplished when they're not. I know sometimes some of the Nigerians have that sort of reputation, right? I don't know of the people from Ghana if they have such reputation, and I know his parents are from Ghana. That's Jason Arday's parents. But I understand that in some cases, when they say that they do better than Caribbean people in the UK, that they embellish their resumes and they look quite studious and accomplished, and more so than people of Caribbean heritage. Not to take away that they're really studious people and they work hard to achieve, some of them, to achieve their academic excellence. But I understand that they do also practice embellishing their academic achievements. I hope that Jason Arday is not coming from such a culture, because that is not good. So this is where we are seeing it. He also, listen to some of the things he said, because this is coming from the Guardian newspaper. Now, this is so terrible, because the Guardian newspaper actually were, they were the ones who were talking about the DEI and, and having blacks at these universities. An investigation by Liverpool John Moores University did not uphold the charge, but did say the mistake were probably caused by honest and reasonable error. So they are saying that he did say, and it was honest of him to say that he did make some error. All of us make errors when we are actually publishing our, graduate work. Arday also seems to have falsely claimed he was a visiting professor at Ohio State University and the University of Glasgow. But both universities deny this. Arday said he completed a master's in psychodynamic practices by Birkbeck University of London, but they couldn't find any record of a student named Jason Arday having studied there. He also said he'd run 30 marathons in 35 days to raise money for charity. He later added that he did this with a fractured leg. Oh my God, this is terrible. He also added that he'd run 600 miles in 6 days, which would put him on a par with the world's best endurance runners. Then there are the claims over his charity work. Arday said he's raised £5 million for charities over 20 years. This is a staggering amount for someone without significant public fame. He said he'd visited South America and West Africa to install water points with water aid, but the charity said it never sends volunteers abroad. Wow. So this is just a lot of lying. A lot of lying, a lot of embellishing his accomplishments. Now we have here Janice is saying the man was a liar, and his students have said his tutorials were very nonsensical. Right. And by the way, Janice, and those of you who are online still, this is the time we should have a conversation too on the same Ibrahim Traore. Okay, this is a serious discussion and a lesson for those of you who are also worshiping and adoring Ibrahim Traore. And I'm not suggesting that Traore is not doing some good things. He is evidently doing some good things. Evidently, when you talk about propaganda, propaganda has some truth to it. Okay, but you've got to be careful about investing all of your energy and belief in one person, whether it's a professor or it's a pundit, somebody who gives punditry, right? A political commentator. Don't put your confidence in not me, not anyone. All right. If you don't believe what I say, can you send me what you just read? Okay, because I want to read it too. I want to know what you are saying, because I'm not seeing it. So I want you to show me what you are reading, because that is how intelligent people should behave. Okay. Yes, many Africans embellish. Z is saying, yes, they embellish a lot. I'm hearing that is what they do. And then they say that they perform better than Caribbean people. Notably, when all of this was happening, not one word from a family member correct. In the UK, Africans embellish a lot. Caribbean heritage are more truthful in their resume. Yeah, I've heard about it. And we're not saying, again, everybody does it. So don't come for me now, people who are listening, and say, oh, you are trying to denigrate the Africans. No. Not all. And I'm sure there are some Caribbean people who embellish their resumes in the UK. But we're saying on the whole, as a culture, the Africans are noted for that. Nobody thinks of mild mental illness. Yes, I think that could be a problem too, that he could, because when you look into his eyes, you could see that. And for what they have done to him, understanding that he was going through that in terms of, autism, because you will never get over autism fully, my understanding. Okay, but I'm sure that he was able to get over the major hurdles he was able to cross, right, in terms of getting things done and becoming a productive citizen. But the fact is that they should have been a little bit more considerate. So that they don't care about us. And I'm wondering too, as you say that, Aunt Marie, I am wondering, when I was reading yesterday and into this morning, I was wondering if they're using him or wanted to use him as an autism sort of, representative to promote whatever medicine they have there or whatever they need to take. I don't know, because that's how they also behave. So I think that could also be a point, that they're using him because he was on the autism spectrum, that they would use him as someone to promote whatever, medication that they want to promote. I know how these people behave. I know them. I read them like a book. Z is responding to Marie, right? Neurodiversity can bring mental illness that made worse by this period of higher stress. Yeah, and it's not only the fact that he was neuro, all of that. It's the fact that even those of us who are not suffering from mental illness, if you had to go through the media sort of lynching, because they lynched him. It was almost like they lynched him. Right? If you had to go through that mental lynching, all of us, I think, would go crazy. You don't want to live. I understand he didn't want to come out of his apartment. He didn't want to leave his apartment. But there's another, there's another allegation I'm hearing. There are students who wanted to report him, and the fact that he probably was not the best teacher. And I understand that he threatened them. Is that true, that Jason Arday threatened some students who wanted to report him or might have reported him, and he threatened them with legal sort of, some legal threatenings about going to court, and all of that stuff. So he was a bullet to my understanding to some extent. Now, whenever they're telling you about this constant racism and racial intersectionality and these big words that don't mean anything, right? Never trust these people, right? Anybody who is always talking about race, don't trust them. Race is real, don't get me wrong, but poverty is real, but anybody who speaks every word that comes from their mouth is about the poor, the poor, the poor. You know that Judas, by the way, who was a disciple of Christ, he was the one who was stealing from the treasury, and he was the one who was telling Christ how he should remember the poor. Right? So be careful of people while he was stealing from the poor. So Judas was stealing from the poor, yet he was lecturing to Christ to remember the poor. Right? So be careful of people who come as these race authority on race, and everything is race. They are actually baiting you. And eventually you're going to realize that it's a religion, it's a cult. But yes, race exists just as much, and racism exists just as poverty also exists. But don't trust people who speak constantly about anything, as a matter of fact. Anything. People must speak with balance, and they must speak with moderation, and they must speak also with objectivity and not wanting to put everything as victimhood versus somebody who is the oppressor, right? And that is what the college is doing also. Might I just say, people, and those of you who are at universities, you do not also believe that everything is oppressor versus victim, right? Don't believe that story as black and white. There are oppressors. But who are the real oppressors? Do we even know that? And also, if they're saying that you are a victim, black people have now internalized that we are always victims, and that's why we're lazy and we're not doing what we ought to do. And we are not also trying to take up responsibility and be accountable, because everything that the media says, oh yes, we're victims, and they want you to be victims because they think that you're inferior to them. Okay, and that is what they did to Jason Arday. Lord, I don't know about students wanting to report him. I've heard students want to consider whether their marks are valid. Well, students will always do that. They did that with me too. Oh, they don't like the marks, so they're going to be telling you that you did not, give them a fair grading. So that will always happen, because students will be. I did when I was a student too. You go to your teacher and say, did you give me the right grade? I think I should have gotten a better grade. We all do that. So that is a part of the profession, and that will never go. Students believe that they deserved higher points. TK says, let's just say that Thomas Sowell, who is GOAT, his credibility didn't take a hit here. Yeah. And I don't believe everything that, Sowell says. I don't believe that. I think that he, again, and I want to say this as you're saying that, take here, is Tekla? Tekla. I want to say this, that don't let us be to the extreme. So the conservatives such as Sowell, he believes that America is equal, and that you don't have any sort of, once you have the grit and you have the determination, that you can achieve. That is not true in all perspective, right? There are nuances to that discussion, right? So I don't believe that too. And I'm not going to take also another hardened position to the left when they say that, oh, all blacks are victims of racism. Okay, I don't believe that too. All right, so we have to find ourselves in some sort of middle ground, because some of the blacks are persons who are being used against black people too. And if they don't know that they're being used, then who is going to tell them? And they're occupying very high positions where they're close to white people. Okay, but they're dangerous. There are lots of black people who are equally dangerous, and they are your oppressors, just like the one in our Caribbean. Right. I'm not the one to take, the extreme right position or the extreme left position. I want to be in the middle. I want to look at the nuances. And that's why I'm saying, come, let us look at this man. I love him. I love Jason. Jason looked like a lovely person. He looked like a brilliant young man. He was ambitious, and we ought to be ambitious. And if you have a child that is suffering from disability, you can use his book. You can use his book in terms of, encouraging people who might have some form of disability to achieve high. Jason did it, so they can do it. There are some holes that you might have to explain to your child in terms of what is not said, but, you can use that which is necessary and which is usable. Z Singh, there's another academic from Cambridge who was accused of plagiarism. I understand many, including white people. His name never outed in the media, and he continued to work there. Yeah, so differential treatment for the same core issue. Very good point. But we're still wondering, though, Z, if he took it too far with all the embellishments of the marathons and all of the books published and all of these things. If he had embellished that aspect of his career, would he have won? I think he would have won the case, because Liverpool, the university that he went to, actually said that he did not plagiarize for his PhD. So he has been exonerated from that perspective. Where it seemed that they continue was because he had other lies that could not have been substantiated and verified. So that is where I think that maybe that person didn't go as far. But Jason, it was almost like he was this savior, this messiah, like Barack Obama, and they presented him to black people. He was the first of his kind, the youngest. At the same time, they were hiding a lot of things about him, because certainly they hid a lot about Obama too when he became president. The whole situation has absolutely Z. You have the best expression here. The whole situation has multiple layers. He could not have said it better. I couldn't have said it better. It has multiple layers. The problem, Z, is when they come on this platform, the people here, they don't want to listen to multiple layers. What they want to hear is that I would have taken a fastened approach, right, and say that racism is racism, it's racism. So when the live started, wow, it was moving, the numbers were moving, and then they just went out because they don't want to hear that, Jason might have blundered. They don't want to hear the layered perspectives. They just want to just listen to something, some gossip, somebody's going to die, that's what got our people's attention. Nice and a liar, bad combination. Yeah. You're right. But one of the things about it, let's not be also judgmental. What I want us to do, ladies and gentlemen, including myself, and as I say us, not you, but us, what I want us to do tonight or this afternoon is to look at our lives too, and to see where we are lying too, because there are times when we tell, the white lies and the we do, right? To embellish ourselves and to make us pass through certain conditions, right? You do that. You're coming through immigration, and sometimes you can't always tell the truth, or you can't do this and that. You're applying for your son to come to the UK or to the United States, and people do embellish the stories and the experiences and all that stuff. So we must understand that it does happen. What we're saying here, as much as you cannot, try not to, because when they come after you, they do come, right? And they have no mercy, right? No mercy at all. Yes, the embellishment of his life was the issue that overshadowed everything. That's what was happened. It almost like everything that is said was just not true. It's not true. His entire career is just not true. You can't be literate at age 18 and have a bachelor's by age 22. I'm sorry. That has to be a miracle, right? Maybe it doesn't seem real, right? It doesn't seem real, and I'm real. But again, people are geniuses, and there are people who might be able to do it. He might have been an exceptional young man, but to have, gotten your bachelor's after becoming literate at 18 is not so much achievable by the common, normal human being. He also called the police on a journalist who was questioning the plagiarism. Well, it depends on how they're doing. Maybe I would call the police if they were not treating me well, and some of them can be nasty, so I don't know how they approach him, so probably I wouldn't blame him for that. I think plagiarism, somebody's saying, accusation, true or not, would blow over with time. Yes, and they say that he was not. They have exonerated from those charges. Remember now, people, that he has been exonerated from those charges of plagiarism. There's no evidence that he has plagiarized. The evidence is where a lot of his embellishments, right, about his running marathons and giving to charity, among other things, this is where now he came under severe attack. Right? They know where to attack your weakest point, right? They know that he did not plagiarize, but they were using all of these things and gathering as much facts so that they can bring him down, which they did. So I think plagiarism accusation, true or not, would blow over with time, but he also had 7-figure deal on biography, and everyone can dig into what when you put it out there for profit. Remember, I was just saying that, Tekla, you probably came after I mentioned that the Guardian newspaper was reporting that he was supposed to be getting 1.4 million. I don't know if it's pounds or United States dollars, but they're saying that having reflected, it might have been lower. So I don't know if he had any problems with the publisher too. There are lots of things happening we don't know, so we just have to speculate. These are all speculation, people. Don't think that I'm saying these things as I know. I don't know. In fact, do you know, and I'm not embarrassed to say that, I never knew of him until Friday. I never knew the man. I was just scrolling and I saw the name, and then I started my investigation. So I never knew this man. Okay, so a lot of what I'm saying, I'm just looking at the facts and I'm putting things into proper perspective and then asking questions. My questions don't mean that I believe in the questions. I'm asking questions because I want to get coherent and logical responses. Basically went too far with it, as you said. Yes, he went too far, and that is what happened, and I'm sorry that happened to him. And that's why I'm saying that why couldn't his brothers or sisters at Cambridge, or maybe they did, approach him and say, this is going to blow up one day. Don't play with these people, because he's young, right? So I'm just slightly older than he is, but an older person, a senior lecturer or professor, should have given him some advice. The thing is, in England, there is no point lying as Black professional. You have to jump through so many hoops to be accepted. It isn't worth having an eye open at night wondering if you'll get caught. One of the things I think his was a special case, though. How did Cambridge, right, a brilliant institution, right, they would have written an autobiography on their website about him with so many holes, and they allowed it even to today, it can be accessed. That, because it doesn't take a rocket scientist to be able to unmask that what's there on the website is ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous. And I think Cambridge is brighter than that, right? They might not be whatever, but they are brighter than putting something like that. They know that people with critical minds would be asking. So and remember too, Z, that some of the people were also questioning his academic qualifications when he went to Cambridge. And if it were you, let us be fair now. If you, Marie and Z, and all of you online, if you are at a university and you're a professor there, and you've been there for years, and you know the hoops that you had to climb over to achieve what you've achieved at Cambridge, then you're not going to be happy if somebody young just comes and just woo, and he's at the top, right? People are going to be against that, and rightly so, because we're human beings. And if I had to go through at least some amount of pain and struggle to get where I am at, and years, right? Why should this young man just come and just get it in no time? Because they want to make him the youngest Black person on the staff, on the faculty. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. Something is fundamentally wrong with what I see here. It's just weird. Right? It's weird. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to give me something different. Don't believe what I'm saying, please, because I've spent a lot of time here. Tell me what you think. I want you, even if you disagree, tell me you disagree with me. Those of you online, and why you disagree with me. We want to get as many different layers of what happened and what is your understanding of the matter. Okay, and tell me why you disagree with my proposition. Let me hear your proposition in terms of what happened and the analysis of the details of what took place. Could you do that? Could you tell me what you think, what you disagree with what I've said? Because we want to hear different perspectives, different opinions on this matter. Do you think it was only racism, or do you think, well, I know Z, what Z thinks, Marie and all the, but any point that you disagree with me on that we could discuss? Any point of disagreement in terms of where we took it into? Did I go too far? Trevor, are you online? Didn't see Trevor today. Trevor, I missed Trevor's commentary. And Jamot, haven't seen him today. I'd like to hear what you think. I've given you my perspective, what I think, but it doesn't mean that my perspective is the correct perspective. We want to hear many different layered perspectives as to what could have happened or might have happened to Professor Jason Arday. May his soul rest in peace, because we know that this is a person who demonstrated great aptitude, and he is an example in some regard. And Marie saying, yes, I agree with what has been expressed. Thank you, Marie. But if there's anything you don't agree with, I would like to know, because it's something that gives me more, a thing more to go and do more research on. I would like to, yes, I'd like to know what you disagree there, because, we can probably have a follow-up live on something that I might not know that I need to know. As I'm saying, this is the first time I have heard about him. I never knew of him. I just heard about his plagiarism and then his subsequent death, and I decided that I would do a live on it to see what we can learn. Because my thing, people, is not about just the person. What life lessons, does it have for us? That's my purpose here on these lives, not to just criticize Jason Arday, but to also this can help us in terms of how we lead our lives, because we have to deal with these similar situations right now. Whether you're a doctor or you're a professor, or we all have to deal with superiors who sometimes want to overstep us. Yeah, Andrew, I actually agree with you. Thank you, Z. And it's refreshing to have a voice outside of England discuss their Black counterparts. Yes, and that's what we want to make this channel into. And please share the channel, Z, and with those in England and those in Barbados. I just think we cannot blame racism all the time. Correct. You put forward an argument that shows why racism doesn't always fit. And I'm trying also to show the analogy that not what all that happens in Barbados or what happens in Guyana or Trinidad we can attribute to the current government, right? There are responsibilities that came before, and we can't blame one government. But Caribbean people want me to blame one person, and I say I can't do that. Yes, I'm laying some blame on the government because they are in charge, so they obviously have to take some sort of responsibility. But to suggest that one person is going to be blamed and because she's Indian and she doesn't like Black people, I am not going to talk like that. Okay, I think that we have to be able to discuss our politics in a much more measured and nuanced manner. And this is what this platform is about. It will take a long time to gain the sort of popularity. But guess what? Look at the guy there. Not things that come through easy labor, as we're learning from our day. If you are just gaining ascension overnight, more than likely it will fall, right? So if you take your time and you build substance, eventually it will click. And that is what we hope will happen to this channel as well. Professor Arday wanted to get there quickly. And look at what has happened to him. He's now not with us, unfortunately, because of that unfortunate experience. Wow, it's so sad. It's really, really a sad situation, and I pray for his parents. But I agree with you. Was he married, Z? They are saying that he has left behind a wife and 2 children. Is that true? Tekla is saying, might disagree with Z, saying other academic accused of plagiarism who wasn't outed by the media points to differential treatment. Cambridge investigated themselves and found no issue with Jason the first time. Yes, they did not find any issue with his academic plagiarism so that was not the point really. Now they are now actually emphasizing his embellishment. And why did Cambridge have all those things on the website, on its website, about achievements, academic achievements that are questionable? Because I would have said, okay, so he learned how to read and write by 18. I would think then he would have to go through the reading. Well, maybe he could do his bachelor's at 22. I don't know. Maybe he could. Failure of DEI. This is not about our day. It's about the failing standards or the falling standards of our institutions. You're correct. And it's not only Black people. It goes across white, brown, Asian, Our institutions are failing us. That is the fundamental point. This is the fundamental point, all right? And this is the sort of analysis that we want on this platform. It has nothing so much to do with Jason Arday, but with the failing, the falling nature of our institutions, that our institutions, our academic institutions are failing us. And you're right. Tekla is saying, so I would put forward that there's simply a lot of corruption and peer review system doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's political. I was a part of it. It's political. And I've seen the sort of pain many people. In fact, do you know that there are lots of professors, when I was working at the university, who complained to me that their ideas were stolen by sometimes the chair or somebody higher than they are. During the pandemic, we learned where Fauci would steal people's scientific discoveries and use them as his, because he is the leader he was the director of the CDC. So, and people have to go through him to get their grants. So you tell me now, so is that fair? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Fauci and the fact that many people at that level said that a lot of his research, his name was placed there, but he was not the investigative person. He was not the person who carried out the research, nor did he come up with the discoveries. Okay, so the fact of the matter is that it is ubiquitous in all areas of the education system, whether in the US or in the UK, among blacks, among whites, among Asians, among all ethnic groups, right? Yeah, married with 2 kids. That's what I heard. That's what I read, rather. We have DEI does not help minorities. It is racist. It is a racist. It is a racist. It is, in fact, the progressive racist. Is the progressive racist agenda? Is the progressive racist agenda? It's opposite of what the right wing think of us. Because both whites, whether they're progressives or they're conservative, they think we are inferior. One tries to feed our ego and the other tries to destroy our ego, right? But the agenda is the same. One is stoking your ego and saying, oh, you're good and whatever. At the same time, they don't want you to get to their level. They covered up. It's not that did not find anything. You're correct. You're correct. Good evening, Z. Long time I haven't seen you. And I've been wondering if everything is okay. We have not seen you for a long time on the platform. This afternoon, we're looking at Jason Arday, Stephen and Z. Good evening. We're looking at, yes, I understand. We're looking at, and sometimes we can't come. I understand sometimes we can't always be here. And I must commend Stephen and Marie and all of you who are always on the live, even when nobody's there. Well, I shouldn't say nobody, because everybody's somebody, and even I am somebody. Jason Arday and Cambridge was a black academic targeted, and we're just suggesting here that there are multiple layers. Did you hear about it, Stephen and Z, about the professor who actually died? They are alleging that he is guilty of plagiarism, and we are wondering, yes, thank you, Marie, and we're wondering what really happened. Do you believe that it was just because he was black that the media went after him and decided to destroy his career? And the first thing, Stephen Knight, that's the first time I was hearing about it on Friday. I was telling the audience I never heard about him. The first time I was hearing about Jason Arday. But for those of you who don't know, he is of Ghanaian descent. He's from Ghana. Well, his parents are from Ghana, and he was born in Black British, and he was the youngest black professor to have been at Cambridge University, professor of sociology of education, and he was recently accused of plagiarism, academic plagiarism, that he actually plagiarized for his PhD, as they had for that past president of Harvard University. What's her name again? It was Claudine Gay. She was the former president of Harvard University. Remember her? That some years ago she was also accused of plagiarizing her PhD work. I could say that, Tekla is saying, I could say that the media treated Jason differently, but wait a minute, it's the same media that bigged him up and invited him to talk shows podcasts and other programs, lots of coverage was good. That coverage was good then. Yes. That's what they do, Tekla. That's what I was saying. That's exactly what they do. They stoke our egos and big up our egos, and we feel good about ourselves. But when they come at us, and let me say something again now. I think it is my opinion. I'm not saying these are the facts. It's my opinion that Jason said something, did something, disagreed with something that they did not like, and they decided to throw him under the bus. Normally, they just don't throw you under the bus for nothing. They throw you under the bus when you disagree or you begin to do something that might pose a threat. So whether he was doing some program, he was working on some program to improve on Black awareness and Black minorities or whatever minorities in Great Britain, and they might not like it, and he went too far than what they wanted him to do, and then they turn on you. Then you'll see the real snakes that these people are. And Z saying, yes, it was very unfortunate. I think systemic racism was a part of it, correct? We agree with that. Cambridge, nearly 1,000 years old, have a private protocol for dealing with those matters. How come his was so exposed? Very good question. I like this response because he's saying that it is to some extent due to racism. However, it's not 100%. There are other factors that we have to put into place. He was let's not be very rude to him now, because we're saying that what we're saying, I don't know everything about him. So I have to be careful of, trying to, use any unkind words against him, because I don't know the man. I did not know the man. What I can say, I'm just looking at the facts, and we're trying to make sense out of nonsense. That's what we do on this platform, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know Miss Mia Motley. I've never met her, never shaken hands with her. She doesn't know me. She's never seen me in all her life. When I do these things, I'm just looking at what is being reported, and we're questioning what makes sense. I don't know Andrew Holness. I don't know any of these prime ministers, Miss Kamala Persson-Bissessar. I can only read, analyze, and we ask questions to make sense of what the reporting is, right? So I don't know him. I can't say really for sure who he is. Was he a liar? But I know that there were some lies told based on the information, because there are some holes in what he was saying. Z saying it was a 21st century lynching. It was. This is not to excuse the behavior, correct? He couldn't have been the first faculty member with disciplinary issues, correct? Well said. Well, and Z, that's why we missed you. I don't know where you were, but we missed your comment, because this is so profound and deep. This is the sort of analysis that we want to have on the platform. But we of course, encourage other responses, but this is the level of discussion, and you are correct. You are correct that he can't be the only guilty person of plagiarism. But again, plagiarism is not what they're actually trying to do. What they were trying to do was to put him down. They were just using now an avenue. They were looking for a weakness, and the weakness that they got was the fact that he embellished some of what he had on his CV, and that is why he actually went down eventually. Tekla saying, I think society is now hypersensitive to DEI for good reason, and that's what's caused exposure. And the same thing, look at our Caribbean lady. What's her name? Kamala Harris, right? She's of Caribbean descent, okay? Partly of Caribbean descent. And yet still people are going after her. Is she really fit for the presidency? I don't think so. And I'm not saying that because, people say, oh, well, you are Caribbean, so you should be, supporting Kamala Harris. No, I don't think she is the best candidate for president of the United States, if truth be told. We must speak truth. She's not experienced. She does not handle herself well under pressure and many other things that the presidency requires. So we have to be very truthful, even though we might have a bias towards her because she's of Caribbean descent. And Z strongly disagree with calling it lynching. Okay, you strongly disagree. I think it's lynching in the sense that they did not have to deal with it in the way they did with it. First of all, I think they could have allowed him to go to court. I don't think the media should be lawyer, judge, and jury, right? Or executioner. I think they should have allowed the courts to have listened to what took place, and then the court would have now decided what would be the verdict, and then whether he should be, expelled or, whatever from the university, and then that would be it. Whether his titles be taken away, then that, and the media then could report. What is sad, and I want to say that, is how this thing has happened on social media, and now where we have become the what? The law and the judge and the executioner. Right? That's not good. That's not good. This should go to the judiciary, where the judiciary would now look carefully at the facts as it has been presented, or they have been presented, and then come up with a verdict, and then that's it. So they would probably say, Cambridge, please get rid of this guy. Well, the court said it, the judge said it, so we can't really, disagree with it, because that's what the judge said. But to have him on, we have to look at him, and then we are the ones when we don't know all the facts. Because let's admit, ladies and gentlemen, we don't know all the facts. We are only reading what they tell us, what they have reported, and trying to make some sense. Because I don't know him, and this is my first time on Friday hearing about this Jason Arday. Never heard of him in my life. Then we have the saying the tertiary level system around the world is in a mess. It is. It isn't meritocratic. Meritocratic. Sorry for that pronunciation at all. It is. Let me get here. It is a system where promotions and accent based on phenomenal corruption. Correct. And you are right about that. You are spot on. They preferred to use the court. Let me get this here. To Marie, the court of public opinion, because we were able to be easily manipulated by the media, right? Because as you're saying that, Marie, what happens when it comes on to you or to me? What happens when you hear Marie's name in the media, or my name in the media, or Stephen's name in the media? Will we do the same thing before getting the facts without calling him and saying, Stephen, I heard that and they're saying that? What they say? Is it true? Or do we just run with what the media is saying and what we hear on social media? Because you know what happened? Social media is dangerous. Today you can be popular and people love you, and tomorrow they will lynch you. They will lynch you. It's a dangerous place. This, what we call social media, I know is a dangerous place. Be cordial, but you can't be too friendly with anyone. Then we have it was, Tackler is saying it was intense coverage, but also the case was very caricatural. And then we have unfortunate mix of circumstances. Yes. But the media always gives us things that not really relevant, right, to the discussion. So they're telling us and they're making us, they have now put it in our minds that this guy was guilty of plagiarism, but we know that he was not. Because investigation was launched and he was not guilty of plagiarism. But the media caused us to believe that, and then now the real issue they're telling us is the embellishments. But that is not the real issue too. It could be that it could be a business related. It could be that he just went against their agenda and they decided to humiliate him. Because let us be clear, even though I might be a Freemason today, and I might be a part of the agenda, it doesn't mean that one day I cannot get to a catharsis where I say, you know what happened? What I'm doing is wrong, and I'm going to take, I'm going to turn the other way. And if you do that, you can end up in problem with these people. You cannot oppose them. Once you enter into contract with these people, it's difficult to expose them. We don't know what was happening to the guy, to Jason, and what could have been happening in his mind. Maybe he wanted to turn back. We don't know. Apparently, Arday claimed he was autistic and did not speak until age 11. He claimed to have 600 miles every week. Yeah, and he was injured. And the fact too, Z, that he became literate at age 18, and then he had his bachelor's at 22, and then 2 master's degree at 27. Wow. It almost seems like he is like a President Ibrahim Traore, right? That he could become the president of England shortly, right? Because he's this great guy, Yes, Steve is saying, yeah, the media will love you and it will spit you out tomorrow. Yes, they will spit you out in the most despicable way the next day, the same person that they had on their program. And Z saying, Andrew, if you could change 3 things in the university structure to make it better. One, it would have to have what we call it now, the way how they employ people in terms of it's political. So it's not based on who is more qualified, but it's based on those who are going to toe the line. So it has to go back to objectivity. The most qualified person should get the position. Another thing, that the peer review thing is too political also, because the people who actually support you, that pay your research, they sponsor your research, these people are the ones who control what you publish. Okay, so you can't just publish anything as people think you can publish. It has to be within the whole matter of the business, the corporate structure, and what they want you. Notice that they put him under the realm of racism. Everything he was studying was racism, equality, and they did not give him the autonomy of doing what he wanted to do. Because if he really wanted to make a difference, what would he be doing? Maybe he would going out in the trenches of England and looking at poverty and how that can be, how Black people are not at equal level as white people in Great Britain. But they just have him talk about racism in this just abstract way and not in this very, substantive manner. And that is what should happen. I would also go back to giving teachers, lecturers the autonomy of what they need to teach their students. I think that to some extent that the system, sort of put the professors in a box as to what they are able to share, the curriculum that they're able to share with their students. I don't think we're free as much at the university level. Stephen, has his family made any statements? No, we haven't heard any statements from them. I would think that they probably are very scared to say anything because they, again, as Z said, it was a lynching, a media lynching, and they could be lynched. This is London you're talking about, and these people are not, they don't play. So we have to be careful. Even though they sound polite and they look sophisticated, these people will lynch. Michael Mouse is saying tragic, but he was clearly a fantasist who got way out of his depth. Correct. Cambridge wanted to parade him about as a prize, etc., and it all got totally messed up. And I think he messed himself up too when he started embellishing his story and how he accomplished and all of that stuff and the marathons he ran and being a philanthropist and so forth. Tekla is saying youngest Cambridge professor, professional pool multi-champion, ultra-marathon runner with swollen and broken leg, right? Cancer and tumor survivor and elite SAS jet fighter pilot hounded to death by the media. Yeah, this world is evil, isn't it? And that's why we have to make sure whatever we do, we are comfortable with what we do, and we don't want people to embellish our stories because we want to be famous. I don't want to be popular. In fact, I didn't want to come on social media because I didn't want people to know me around the world, But if you have something to say, you just have to say it. If I become popular, then so be it. But I don't want. I'm hungering for it. It's not my hunger to be popular in the world sphere, because it makes you what? More susceptible and vulnerable to one, arrogance. That's one, because when you become popular, people get arrogant. And as they get arrogant, they don't listen and they make a lot of mistakes and traps are laid for them. Stephen Knight says, yeah, I see that they kept him in a box. Yeah, so sad. And he's saying, another question, has Cambridge been irreparably damaged? Well, I don't think they are. I think that it is a campaign against Black people. They want to get rid of us. Remember now that only 1% of Black professors in Britain, only 1% of professors are Black in Great Britain. 1%. Think about that. So I think they want us out of the system completely, particularly those of us who are at the elite institutions like Cambridge and Oxford. They're gonna say very soon that we are the ones through DEI that have brought the standards down. So that's also another. The agenda is to make the case that Black people should not be at that level. because we don't have the scholastic aptitude like white people to be at that level. So they can't do it openly. So they have to do it in these cunning ways in which they have done to Jason Arday. So they're going to make as I read, I made an article, Z, before you came online, where the writer was suggesting that if it were a white person who did it, he or she would have been pronounced as what? An individual mistake, right? That this is not like what white people do. This is just one individual among many. But when it comes on to black people, they loop us, they put us into one group and say, yeah, these are what all black people do, right? And that is the difference between us and them. All right, so they will say, okay, they might have been punitive to the white person, but they will say that is what that person did, not what the group will do, because the group has standards, right? But black people don't have standards. At the same time, they're not employing the best black mind, because if they were to get the best black mind at Cambridge, this would not have happened, right? This would not have happened, because if they were to get, like, you know, Walter Rodney's of Guyana, the Eric Williams of Trinidad and Tobago, and these people, they could not be doing what they could not undermine these people, because these people were solid people. And we still have some of these people today, but, you know, the Cambridge probably don't want them. They want the people that are not so great. And then when they fall, they say, oh, look at those people, you know, they're blacks, they have no standards, but they don't want them. They didn't employ the best of us in the first place. Right? Because you have to go with the program when you go to these universities. And if you don't run with the program, you could be as good as daylight. They don't want you. They are not going to employ you because they want people to submit to their agenda, and that's it. Do you think they would have, let us say that Malcolm X were alive, and he had a PhD and, you know, brilliant scholar. They wouldn't want him at Cambridge University, right? Because he would be an activist. And he would speak out against what he saw there, right? So people like these, they don't want these people of those caliber. They want the people like the likes of Jason Arday, who, you know, he would just run for the system. But at what point do you say, I can't go with you anymore? I can't run with the program anymore? And I think to some extent, Jason might have had that catharsis and say, you know what happened? I can't go with them because it's depressing. It's depressing. It's depressing. The way how they run their show, it's depressing. The university centers can be one of the most depressing centers that you can ever be in. It's depressing. It is depressing, you know, when you see what is happening there and you understand what happens, you know, behind the scenes, you know. So I'm so sorry for him, and I don't want to, I'm not excusing him, holding him, even though he's now dead, accountable for the things that he did. We have to hold him accountable. We must hold ourselves accountable, but we can understand that he was attacked in multiple ways. Trevor, welcome. I was hoping you'd have been here earlier, Trevor. Yeah, first thing, Malcolm X and people like him don't need validation, correct, by university degrees, correct. But I was just saying, Trevor, had he had the PhD and would have been, you know, qualified from university perspective to teach at Cambridge, he would not have been the preferred candidate because he would have been too outspoken. And they would not want somebody the likes of Malcolm X to be teaching because he would challenge them and put them in their places, right? And white people don't like when they're put in their places by another black person. You know, they just don't like it. That's why they unalived him. That's why they unalived Malcolm X, even though he wasn't a part of a university structure, right? They still thought that he was a danger. He was a threat to the system. Okay, but obviously Jason Arday, maybe in the initial stage wasn't a threat. Did he become a threat afterwards? We don't know. We don't know because we don't know the full story. He might have challenged them and they decided that they would humiliate him. England has to understand that the climate is changing. You know, they say the climate is changing, Stephen, and I wish the climate was changing. I think the climate is going back. The climate is going back to the days of the lynchings. What they're actually doing, Stephen, is that they're using, the tokenism of Black scholarship and Black leadership to suggest that the time is moving forward. But we're not moving forward. We're actually moving backward. If you look at carefully, because they're achieving their success, because they're using the white liberals to fool us into believing that we are progressing when we are actually regressing. And that's what we have to really understand. Trevor is saying, but people who show they can be dominated or bought are the ones they give the spotlight to correct. Those who have loaded titles and can't believe in their value without the indoctrination. You're correct. All these titles too, because he had two masters, and nothing is wrong with two masters, by the way, but it's a way in which he got them so quickly, after he became literate. That is, chancer in life that got found out. Yeah, it is sad. Yeah, it is sad. It is sad. Okay, it is sad. It is sad. And we should, observe a moment of silence for him and his family, because it is sad. It is sad. Trevor is saying, busy day today, so I was back and forth. Yes, yeah, I know. I understand that you can't always be here. I'm just saying, Trevor, when you're not here, it's almost like I'm here by myself. I know, of course, Marie and Steve and all the others are here, but you do offer a lot of great insight. I believe he definitely will be a mascot scapegoat for DEI. Well, they're trying to abolish DEI, Trevor. That's what they're doing, subtly that's what they're doing. They're exposing in the US as well as in the UK DEI, and these right-wing people and the white liberals also, even though they're pretending that DEI and the woke are helping us, they're using it also as a weapon against us to what should I say now, to have us lose our credibility. And eventually they're going to say, white people are going to say, and even some blacks are going to say that DEI should go because we are not capable, brilliant people. And I agree with you about him being, I think I missed here, being a hit. He probably stepped out of line. I think so. I think he stepped out of line. Whether it's the publisher, whether between the publisher and him, and I think something is telling me, ladies and gentlemen, is a publisher. And they didn't want to give him. Remember that when you listen to Dr. Umar Johnson, and he speaks about Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston, and the fact that they wanted their rights to their, what do you call it again, to their what they have again. These musicians have the right to their what do the musicians have, guys? Their oh Lord, the word has evaded me. The rights to their music, their whatever, right? And because they wanted that right to their, copyright to their own possession, the United States got rid of them. The copyrights, right? The copyright. There's a word for it too, and they wanted it. And when they decided that they would have it, yes, they decided to get rid of them. Yes, I agree. Yeah, I think so. I think that's what happened. I think it had to do with business, or it had to do with the fact, as you're saying, Trevor, that he said something that was in a disagreement with the contract. Again, whenever you go to Harvard and you go to Cambridge as a black person, I'm sure also some whites, but particularly as black people, because we're minorities, I'm sure you have to sign a non-disclosure form. And if you go against the principles outlined in that form or contract, it means therefore that you can be disciplined. You can be. Cornel West also was almost in that sort of situation, right? Cornel West, because sometimes he speaks out and speaks too much, and sometimes they do discipline him, So we know if Cornel West is, a popular guy and well-established intellectual, what says 41-year-old? I think he was 41 years old when he died. What says Jason Arday of Great Britain? Who nobody really knows. Nobody really knew him, Then we have Steve Knight is saying they want to keep their institution white, but yet they have stolen from African countries. Correct. Because they feel threatened. Whenever black people are too educated, it's a problem. Whenever, particularly the black male, whenever the black male is too educated, it's a problem. It's a threat to white establishment. They don't want it to happen. Okay, and that is why we're seeing the declining rates, even at Howard University and the University of the West Indies. We're seeing lots of women going to school while our black males are no longer at universities. Because when you have a black male that is too educated, it represents a threat, a serious threat to the white establishment. Correct. And then we have Trevor saying, you even see recently, whenever a black person or immigrant gets into trouble, they say, oh, look, another engineer and doctor, and they laugh, right? Making a mockery of this exact same thing, degrading everyone. Yes, yes. They, you know, when you look at the 60s and before the 60 eras in the United States, right? Black males were at the center of the liberation struggle, you know. It was black. Well, black women helped them because they were their wives and, you know, and whatever. But the fact of the matter is that black males were at the center, and they were young. They were young. Remember now that, you know, Martin Luther King Jr. died young, died at 36, 37 years old. These people were young, and they were at the center of this liberation struggle, Malcolm X. Okay? So they know that if black people are too educated, it's a problem. The black male in particular, it's a problem, and they do everything. So, you know, obviously he probably was a bright young man, and they had to get rid of him. Yes, they're owning their publishing and masters. Yes, yeah. It's the same approach that happened after the civil rights movement, when they specifically hired and indoctrinated the women, yeah, and told the women to work against black males because they wanted black males to go. And we have, boom, there we go, thought the exact same thing, yeah. We are a threat. We are a threat. And I'm so sorry for him. Well, I shouldn't say I don't know him. I can only be sorry for the fact it's the loss of another black male, a young person. He was only 41 years old. So he had not even started to live his life and to live his academic life. And the fact that he should see the fruits of his labor as someone who was a late learner, and he couldn't see that because of British, what do you call it now? You know, lynching him and racism and all of the isms against him. Yeah, schisms against him. All right, ladies and gentlemen, any other thought, or we shall end the live since we have 2 hours, 15 minutes going. And we will talk about another topical issue another time. But this was something that I thought we should have come and spoken about. And I think that we've gotten enough of your feedback. I think it was excellent. Wish more people were on the line. You know, when it started out, it was moving. The numbers were moving, and then the algorithm stopped it. You know, people probably jumped off the live because, you know, they probably were expecting that I would have come here and said that it's racism, and that's the end of story. But that's not how we do our program on this platform. Even today, university career women are constantly pushed with equality titles, programs, but yet it's only about women. Yes, and to be frank with you, it's more white women that they're pushing, but they're dividing. They're making black women believe that it's for them, but it's designed mostly for white women. And black women now are the ones who are destroying the family among black people in the United States, because they are become enemies now of black males. You know, they're the enemies of black males. Black females, they have allowed black females, not that they intentionally wanted to do it, but they have conditioned black females in America to fight against their men. Not that their men don't have problems too, but you know what I mean. Trevor is saying feminism started with white women the same way. Correct. So that is, everything they do is for them, whether they're trying to help you, but they're not trying to help you. And that's why Marcus Garvey says we have to be what? Self-reliant. We must have our own institutions. We must be relevant, and we must have our standards and not go to Harvard and Cambridge or Oxford believing that they are passing on some sort of esteem to you. And many of us believe that depending on going to these institutions, it makes us feel as if we are smarter or we are better than the other black person. But that is nonsense, right? Now, if you can go there and get some money and get free education, go there by all means, right? Go there, but don't believe that it's going to give you, this sort of elevated education more than you could get at some other institution. More contacts, certainly, and trying to, to hobnob with the elites. Now but in the day and age, he should have known that he would never be accepted, regardless of how high in academia he has achieved. It's something about the wine of Babylon, right? And the wine of white people. When they put you into position of power, Stephen, and you have that popularity, the youngest Black person ever, Black professor to have ever graced the walls of Cambridge, these things can make you drunk. Think about you're being in the United States now, Stephen, and so you got a position in your corporation, wherever you work, and they say the youngest Barbadian or the first foreigner or whatever. It makes you feel important. And no matter what, we are humans, and you're going to call your mother Stephen, and she's going to say, I'm proud of you. My son is the first Barbadian in that company or whatever. And then yeah. So, and think about it too. Blacks in the UK make up just 1% of university professors. So he would be the elite of the elites, because not only is he a professor, but he is a professor of an elite university. So it makes him stand out. And I'm sure that his family members and himself, if you were there, I would be proud of myself too. But I would know, as you're saying, Stephen, that I should not embellish what they say about me. I tell them that this is what I've accomplished and no more. Nothing is wrong to go at the universities or work for them. Let me just say that nothing is wrong to work at a Harvard if you have the qualification. If they invite you to work for them, you go. What I'm saying to you is that do not go there and be now, trapped in their mode of thinking that you have to embellish your work and what you do, and then they force you to do that, and then they come around and they change. If they send you away, you can leave there with your dignity intact. Okay, you want me to go? Bye. And you're gone. They can do nothing. They can make their accusations, but guess what? It's not true. Blacks still work to be accepted, right? We still work to be accepted. And not only work, Z, is who you're working with. Whom are you working? That is a big thing. Are we working with whites or are we working with Black people? If you're working with white people, you feel more elevated, right? And that is happening today. And then we cry foul when they are racist. We say, well, we don't like white people, yet we want to be close to them. We want to work with them, and we want to work for their institutions. Well, we know too that because they pay more, and that's one of the things. But at the same time, say that, and that's practical, because you need the money to pay your bills. But at the same time, don't behave as if it gives you some sort of self-esteem. 60s and 70s destroyed the Black women, and we're scraping the bottom of the barrel for a good one today, but that isn't trying to kill her man and child for her own gain. Yeah, it is sad, and that's exactly what is happening in America right now. It has been happening since the 1990s and probably before. Never lower yourself to that level, correct? Money is what makes people click, and makes them, and popularity. So if you can be published in BBC and the New York Times, people, you feel good, because we are minorities. We are minorities, and not many of us are working in these institutions or for these institutions. So if my name comes out as a Barbadian, if a Barbadian scholar, right? Like now you have the guy there at Harvard. What's his name? Professor, the Jamaican scholar at Harvard University. Every time his name comes up about Harvard, Jamaicans are proud. And I'm sure Barbadians and Trinidadians who have these scholars at these universities, they feel good that, yes, here goes a Trinidadian at Columbia University or at Harvard University, and it makes the nation feel proud. So not only you feel proud, but you represent your entire nation and ethnic group or race. So he had a lot of weight. Another thing we must say, we put a lot of weight on people like these people, as I'm saying, the Trinidadian at Harvard or whoever at Oxford, because when we have the entire weight of the nation and the people on these people, they are going to slip. They're going to slip, right? And we put all this weight on them and the expectations, and they're just too much. And people do slide, right? And sometimes we are not friends with them when they slide too, right? Because we want them to be, almost immaculate, right? Drunk on the wine of Babylon, correct? Accept yourself. That's what, and just look at work as a means to an end, and leave it alone. Don't think that it is what defines you. Don't think, because if you ever think that, that is how they get you, because they realize you have no self-esteem, so you only get esteem from working with them and the positions and titles that they endow you with. But if you are the same person, I can be poor as a church mouse and I maintain my integrity. You don't have to talk to me. That's fine. That's fine. But my integrity is still going to be maintained, right? Now, I agree, because we really do not need these institutions to make us who we are. We don't. We don't. In fact, they more humiliate us. And many of us, we can't do the things we would do if we were in our institution. All right. I've also seen, ladies and gentlemen, the scholarship coming out of these universities from Black people. They can't say a lot of things that you and I are talking about on this program. They don't dare to say these things. They can't. They can't. They're controlled what they say, what they write, because they're being paid by the elites. So they can't talk about the IMF and what the IMF is doing to Barbados and Jamaica. They can't, even though they know it's true. They call it white knight and whitewashing for a reason. Yes, it is. And Tekla is saying, Stephen, that's irrelevant because his work was very poor quality. You can't know whether he would or wouldn't be accepted. Texas sharpshooter fallacy. Yeah. Well, we have, that's irrelevant. Well, we said it already. And then we have, yeah. So this is where we are in terms of we have to get our acts together. We've got to go back and read Marcus Garvey. I think we need to go and read the philosophy of Marcus Garvey, right? So that we can see what some of the advice that he gave, the counselings that he gave Black people, because I think we have lost our way. And as you're saying, Stephen, I believe that we're not progressing. I don't think that the world in which we live, there's some progress to some extent, but when you look deeper, at the deeper level, many of us have been left behind and we're not going anywhere, and there's no plan to take us anywhere. So that is where we're stuck and we don't know where to go now. At least Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X in their days, they had a vision. We are stuck. We don't know where we're going. We're confused. And Steve Nant is saying that's why we have a problem in the Caribbean with some of those so-called Black established men and women. They put dollars before their Blackness, correct? Because really and truly, nobody looks at themselves as Black or white when they're in a work. They just look at themselves as a person. And, so when you are at work, Stephen, you are just reminded you're Black because you're in America and somebody sees you as a Black. But, when it comes onto the nick of things, you see yourself as an individual and you have achieved this success and you're there on your own merit and you're trying to achieve and to live your life the best way you can, right? But to carry an entire race on your shoulders, I don't think it's possible. It's hard. And that is why you find the Martin Luther Kings and the Marcus Garveys, they died early. They died young because they carried an entire nation, an entire race on their shoulders. It was hard, right? It must have been hard for people like the Malcolm X's and the Marcus Garveys and the Martin Luther King Jr.'s and the C.L.R. James and all these people. It must have been hard for them. How did they sleep? Because they carried an entire race. They wrote about it. C.L.R. James, and he wrote books, volumes on these things. You really wonder if he even slept, because these people were constantly thinking about how they could improve lives for an entire people. Remember, though, universities and the education system on the whole changed when Rockefeller started funding them, correct? Today, 1 and 1 is 2, and tomorrow it's 11, correct? Meanwhile, they push agendas to the students. And that's why the woke agenda has changed and is revolutionizing the system. Because I'm sure they have other young Black professors, even brighter than Jason Arday was in Great Britain, but they decided that they would choose him. Right? They decided that he would be the chosen one. There could have been a better Black president than Obama, too, of the United States, but they decided that they would choose Barack Obama because he was the one selected to do exactly what they wanted him to do. And that's what we have to understand. Not that yes, he's a leader. He has his strengths. Don't get me wrong now. Barack Obama is no idiot, but the fact of the matter is that he might not have been the person for that position to have elevated and to change the direction on which the United States was actually going. And recruitment for lodges and to be the next Manchurian candidate, correct? And Z saying, I still think, though, that we need to keep woke. You mean woke, the woke agenda, or to be awake? Is that what you're saying? The woke agenda we're saying is the one that is suggesting that men and women are not similar, and they have this wayward thing that you can have two fathers as parents and two mothers as parents, and so that's what we call the woke agenda. But if you mean staying awake, yeah, we need to keep awake. We need to keep vigilant. The woke agenda, however, is a communist agenda, by the way. They can't sell communism to the American people as, the other politicians in Latin America could sell communism. So what they do, American scholars, they have hidden behind the woke agenda, this communistic agenda to take over America and its institutions. For example, you can't be a doctor rather, unless you are a legal drug pusher, correct? They destroyed herbalists in the 20s and tied you going to the doctor with your workplace, so something like a realignment is not recognized. That's how they do it, people. And that's why we're saying, how would we change the system? We would have to separate, just like how the founding fathers separated church from the state. You can't have the church and the state in bed together. When you have these two entities in bed together, it's going to be over. The same thing, you can't have businesses, corporations, and government tied together, in which the corporations is instructing government what to do, as the church would instruct the government what to do. We need to have, I think in the Constitution needs to be rewritten. You can't have, in the same way you shouldn't have church and state, you must not have corporate states like the Amazon and all these tech billionaires in bed with the state. So hence, they're running the show and not the government, who should be what? Obeying the Constitution, the laws of the country, and working on our behalf. I got you now. Yeah, we should be awoke. Yeah, the woke agenda is different from. Notice how they are very good at crafting words. When they say woke, we think it's, they look at the word gay and rainbow. These words had different meanings, right, back in the days, and they've co-opted these words. The same thing with woke, right? Woke is a good word to be in terms of being always vigilant and aware, but they've now co-opted it that it can mean something else, But you're right, Z, woke in terms of vigilance of social injustice. Absolutely, we must, because there is social injustice in the world, right? And Trevor is saying, just like how they integrated education with technology in the last 15, 20 years, libraries are far more quiet now and less learning and desire of truth, just a quick search. And ChatGPT, right, can tell you everything you need to know. Because that's what it's about. Learning isn't about now inquiring and reading for yourselves and exploring new information. Just get it from a microwave. Get it from on ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will tell you everything that you need to know, even when it's lying, even when the information is false, right? Even when the information is false. But people love it that way, right? People love it that way. Why? Because analysis is no longer important in the world. Right? What people want now, that's why very soon we are going to be lynched, because people are going to be revved up. And when people feel that the anger is directed to them and everybody's going into one direction, they will have the stones and they will throw their stones at us, right? They are going to throw a lot of stones, Pedro. And I was asking, where were you? Greetings, Cambridge. Change the definition of woman should say a lot, right? They are reaping the whirlwind, right? The seed that the seeds rather that they sowed, they're actually reaping that fruit, and the fruit is not a pretty fruit that they are reaping. But at the end of the day, they are not going to lose. Cambridge is not going to lose. We are the ones who are going to lose because their agenda will be achieved. Their agenda will be achieved no matter what. No matter what, ladies and gentlemen, their agenda is going to be achieved. So let's not be now deceived by what we are seeing happening in the media, because as we're saying, we are not hearing the real agenda, we're just hearing part of what they want us to hear. And then they want us to fight and say it's black and white and we fight and we fight, and then they are pushing forward with the agenda. Well, there are multiple agendas, as we're suggesting. One is to get rid of most black professors at these universities. They're going to call us that we are DEI. So there is an agenda. I think the name Coffey, right? Is the name the guy's name Coffey, the one who wrote out. He was the one who started the campaign against Jason Arday, and he believes that races are real and that black people do not have scholastic aptitude to study and to teach at universities like Harvard and Cambridge, right? So he's going after that, and he wants to get rid of all blacks who are professors and probably students at these top league institutions. So that's one agenda. Another agenda is that they want to institute their woke agenda, but they're doing it in and pretending as if they want standards when we know that they don't want standards, okay? And another thing is that they want us to understand. They want us to understand that if we don't go with the program, then they can humiliate us likewise. So if you think that you and I can escape what is happening or what has happened to Jason Arday, we are sleeping, because that's what they're sending us to, that if you don't play the game, they can humiliate you. And when they use media against you and your friends and your colleagues, what are you going to do, right? Jason did not come out of his apartment for 3 days. He just could not, right? It means, therefore, that he had maybe some of the people that he thought were his friends, had also abandoned him. So be careful when people are around you and partying and eating and feeling wonderful. Maybe sometimes at your darkest moments, they will not be there. Trevor is saying, yeah, it's crazy because the quality of, for example, English CXC today is not the same as years ago. You're correct. Each year is less to pass, taking in the children for daycare and brainwashing purposes. Absolutely. When I see people getting like 24 subjects and 8 subjects, some of whom did not do anything on their papers, right? It's true what you're saying, that Caribbean education is gone to the dogs. Our education system has gone to the dogs. And let me say something to you. When you and I were growing up, our teachers told us in the Caribbean that we were not also doing well in terms of they had, a higher standard. And every successive generation, the standard is even going down more and more. And we find ourselves worse than the previous generation. Brother, this guy was a complete fraud. Well, that's what we're learning. And we hope that, it's sad. And what I'm saying, maybe he didn't, it's sad. That's what I say. I don't know much about him. We read a lot of the facts, leave on the footprints. But what we're trying to do, we're trying to make sense of what the media is saying. And I'm trying to educate our people here, leave on the footprints, that it is not only, it doesn't have to do about race. It's other agendas, it's other issues at stake here. Remember now, it's not only about Professor Arday. Please be reminded, it's much deeper than what they're telling you. It's theft, absolutely, and we have to agree with that. He lied, all right? He lied. And we must, but not only him, the education system lies a lot. The media lie a lot. The same media that are going after him, they lie too. And they're worse liars than Jason Arday. And I'm not any Jason Arday fan. I don't know him, but I do know some of these people are. Don't. You're not hurting my feelings. In fact, that's what I'm saying. I agree 100% with you. In fact, many people left the live because I was not telling them that Jason, was wrongfully, accused. I am black is not a justification for stealing others' work and presenting as yours. You're correct. But what I'm saying to you, Lee, it is more common in academia than many people would like to believe. Pedro DeMott is saying he had a lot of lies after being exposed. Right. Well, he didn't lie about the plagiarism. What he lied about were the comments of, how he actually achieved his academic successes. How do you, become, you started speaking at 11 years old. Then at age 18, you became literate. Then after you became literate at age 18, you got a bachelor's at 22, and then you got 2 masters at 27, and then after 27, you got at 30, you got your PhD, and then you just moved up into professorship like that. Something is not right there. Something is missing, and we know that can't be true. Let me read what you have here, Lee. He shouldn't have been platformed as he was. He shouldn't, but Cambridge did that to him. And we're saying that white people can use us and they will spit us out after they have accomplished their goal. And Pedro DeMott is saying, you can see why they pushed Jason. He has the right gender. But don't they say that he's married and he has 2 children? That's what I understand. But it's that too is weird, right? That too, because his entire persona says something otherwise. Then we have leave only footprints. And the Cambridge University should be held accountable. Correct. Absolutely. All of them who lied to us should be held accountable. I don't think people here are arguing about his behavior. His gross misbehavior is understood. However, the attacks on him were like atomic bomb level. Correct. This is the point, people, that we have to look at. The way in which they were attacking him, okay, is not that we don't agree that he did some wrongs and he made some mistakes, but it's the way in which it was done, right? That was questionable. And then we have same media, but I can bet it was a different government at that time. They're all the same. They're all the same. Democrats, Republicans, the Labour Party, the whatever party they have in Great Britain, they're all the same, the Conservative Party. Democrats were doing the most to pander and trick minorities. That's what they did and continue to do. Bruce Jenner has a wife and children too. You're right. The whole thing about Jason is just mysterious. Just mysterious. Hey, Andrew, are you misgendering him? Men get pregnant too. You're right. You're right. You're right about it's just weird. Everything about the story is just a mystery, right? I don't understand it. Even I'm reading it a lot about it. In British universities, he's saying social Darwinist principles are practiced but denied. Yeah, you're correct. So they're conservative, that's what you're saying. He was able to inflate his achievements, yes, and the media pushed it so hard, and when it went wrong, the media backed away. They pushed it hard because they wanted him down from the first place, right? They wanted him down, but they used him and then they spat him out of their mouths, right? That's what they do. They all do that all the time. Seeing those alleged plagiarized passages side by side, I can say it was plagiarized. Okay, Cambridge clearing him the first time was evidence of further corruption, in my opinion. I see what you're saying. Oh, wow. That is something that is going to be a conversation for a long time about Jason. And I'm sorry that it took place at this time when we should be talking about other substantive issues, but we can also apply the lessons learned, or that he should have learned. He's now dead, so we can't learn. He can't learn those lessons, but we can learn. Remember now that this is not about Jason. This is about us, because we have been left behind. He's now gone. So we are alive, and what is the lesson for us? Could somebody tell us what lessons can we learn from Jason while we're now wrapping up before we end the live? What are some of the lessons, probably 3 lessons that we can learn from the ordeal of Jason Arday? When keeping it real goes wrong. Yeah, it's sad. It is sad. And no matter if he's guilty, we must learn to show empathy, because it could be me, it could be you, it could be anyone, right? So let us try to show empathy to the parents, because he's no longer alive. So his family are the ones who would have to deal with this very, very painful situation. Don't fabricate your life. That's number 1. Yes, don't fabricate your life, even though it might be that you're going to get probably $5,000 more, or $15,000 more on your income. It's not a wise idea to fabricate our lives, because it can end up biting you, coming back to haunt you. You're right. You're correct. 100%. See, Pedro is saying, face your music when things go sour. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully that there will be somebody to help us to face the music. It's hard when you're facing it on your own. It's not all about the dollars, correct? It's not all about the dollars, because at the end of the day, dollars will be around, right? When your life is in misery, right? And I'm sure that Jason would have preferred to have been a PE teacher, right? Working for a local high school where he would have been happy and teaching his lessons in physical education, and would have just been at peace. Rather, probably not even, he would have been known among the public. Lesson, don't lie. Correct? That is the essential lesson. The basic lesson is we should not lie. Dude could have been PE teacher, right? Telling stories about how he used to be the best pool player back in his days, and everyone would let it slide. Correct? Because he would not need to be in the public's eye, right? But a school like a university like Cambridge, he is going to be definitely exposed by the media. I was just writing the same thing. Well, thank you so much for joining. This was a great live, and tomorrow we will continue with another Tekla and all. I want you to be back on the live, and there's another guy that at Z he's from Barbados. I think he's in Barbados. Very well. Also want you to come back to the program, because I benefited a lot. I learned a lot from you guys. And let's have a very interesting conversation tomorrow, another time, when we look at another important matter. Okay, can we look at the whole matter of the climate change? It's back in light. I understand that the Ghanaian president, he is also a descendant of somebody who has inherited wealth from former slave masters. So a lot of the people who are batting for climate change and reparations, their family, including Miss Mia Motley, I understand, some of their family members benefited from what. Good evening, Andrea. You're a bit late. We're just ending the program. I missed you and your comments, Andrea Crawford, for sure. Thank you so much for joining, and we will talk tomorrow. Remember now to like the live. Make sure all of you like the live before you leave, and share it with as many people on the platform. Bye-bye. Have a great night. Bye.